Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Minato and Kushina trains Naruto council bashing. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Katy Muhle, link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Naruto Uzumaki, Konoha's biggest knuckle-headed shinobi, was sitting in Ichiraku's ramen in deep thought. It wasn't a surprising sight to see Naruto thinking to himself and spacing out. After everything that had happened, people were surprised that he hadn't snapped and started killing random villagers, even if he was only 12. It all started with him being called to Sarutobi's office one morning after waking up with no food or water, and the landlord demanding his pay or leave, in which he disagreed on both ends. It was a horrible way to start a day, but it only got worse from there on. As soon as he arrived to the Hokage Tower, he was greeted with Sarutobi himself outside, which was very rare because Sarutobi never had his meetings outside his office, let alone his tower. It was also the way Sarutobi looked at him as he asked on the progress of his education in the ninja academy. He was sure he saw pity and guilt in those old eyes as he told the old man how great he was becoming. Then afterwards he was escorted into the tower by Sarutobi, who apologized profusely on what would transpire, although the little 12-year-old didn't know what to make of that. When they got to the office, Sarutobi told him to keep an open mind and he hoped that Naruto could forgive him one day before opening the door and changing Naruto's life forever. When he walked into the office, he was greeted with a view of the Yondaime, the Yellow Flash, his true hero, sitting in the seat that would originally be Sarutobi's place. There was a woman with him too, with long red hair and two kids at her side. The first was a girl looked no older than 3 years old and had short red hair like the woman. The other looked about his age and had a lot of similar physical qualities that matched his Warrick no Jutsu. He was surprised to see his hero alive and well, but what happened next shattered his image in the Yondaime. "Ah. Naruto, I'm glad you're here," Minato said with that foxy grin that Naruto couldn't help but compare to his own. "Look at you, so handsome already. You have your father's looks alright," the red-eyed woman gushed. "Father?" Naruto registered that word pretty quickly because as far as he knew he was an orphan and his parents died. "That's right, son. I told you he'd take after me, didn't I, Kushina?" Minato said looking at his wife. "DCH, whatever, he still has my face," Kushina playfully jabbed, never noticing what a grave mistake their antics had made. "Naruto, I'm sure you're familiar with the Yondaime Hokage, and this is Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. They're your parents," Sarutobi finished with a grim expression. Naruto just stood there in shock for a long time. He didn't move nor look like he was breathing. That kind of behavior worried his parents. "Sachi, are you okay?" Kushina asked, looking concernedly at her son. "Now I know what you must be thinking. How come it took us this long to come home? Well, with Jiraiya and Tsunade taking care of you, we just figured we'd wait a while and train Naruto a bit more. Why, I bet those two Sannin had been beating you to the ground with how serious they were when it came to training. Oh yes. I'd like you to meet you two sisters," Minato said gleefully as he indicated to the older sister holding the little red-eyed. "Is that Naruto Nai-san?" the little girl asked her older sister softly. "Yes, Narumi-chan, that's Ani-san," Naruto said warmly to her, rocking the little girl gently. She walked up to Naruto and stood at a respectable distance and cleared her throat. "Hello, Naruto Nai-san. I'm Naruko and I'm your younger twin. This is Narumi and she's the youngest of us. I've been waiting to meet you for so long, Nai-san, and I'm so honored," Naruko said. She smiled brightly at her brother and bowed. "Haha. They've always wanted to meet you ever since we told them they had an older brother. Gosh, it seemed like yesterday when the Kai." "That is enough, Minato," Sarutobi cut in. He understood Minato's excitement in seeing his son after all the years he staged his death and left Naruto in the hands of Tsunade and Jiraiya. But Minato didn't know of what happened while he left Naruto at the mercy of vengeful villagers who despised the Kyuubi brat, nor did Naruto know about the Kyuubi altogether, and Minato was just digging himself a bigger grave with every word he spoke. "What is it, Sarutobi?" Minato asked. "I told you to hear me out before you did anything, but did you listen? No. You have no idea what you've done. You have no idea what a grave mistake you and Kushina made," Sarutobi said with a frown. "What are you talking about, Sarutobi?" Kushina questioned confusedly. "So you know them?" Naruto asked, his bangs covering his eyes from everyone. "Yes, Naruto, I know Minato and Kushina, and I cannot begin to tell you how sorry I am for not informing you about them," Sarutobi said sadly. He wouldn't be surprised if Naruto hated him, hell, right now, he hated himself. He only knew about Minato and Kushina's disappearance after the Kyuubi attacked. He found a letter stating that Minato had trusted Jiraiya and Tsunade to look after their child together since they were both the child's godparents. They would train Naruto on controlling the Kyuubi's chakra under the knowledge that Naruto only had the soul. Minato sealed a part of the Kyuubi in both children, but it didn't work out that way. He couldn't say anything because it was an S-rank secret, sweetie, Kushina cooed. And I'm sure you know all about that since you're in the Ninja Academy, if what I read is correct, Minato said, looking at a paper with a proud smile. Minato, we really need to talk. These are not happy times and I'm sorry to say that things didn't go the way you hoped all those years ago. Sarutobi said, staring down at Naruto in sadness. Am I free to go, Sarutobi-sama? Naruto asked emotionlessly. But Sachi, yes, you're free to go Naruto and I'm sorry, Sarutobi said, ignoring the furious look Kushina sent his way as Naruto left the office. Word got out about the 4th Hokage's return and the village celebrated in honor of their hero, even after it was revealed that he faked his own death. Minato also expressed his disappointment and fury at the villagers for what they did to his very own flesh and blood. A lot of villagers were confused on that, but Minato soon cleared that up with the shocking revelation of Naruto being his son. Some of the villagers already knew they were in big trouble. Kushina went on a rampage, attacking any villager that was reported to have hurt her Sachi. She beat them so badly that she was forced, by Minato himself, to house arrest. He didn't like these people too, but he was the Hokage again. Kushina was angry at that, stating that he didn't care enough about his child, in which he replied that he would have gladly taken Naruto's place if they were there for him in the beginning. Both parents knew they messed up and they even tried putting the blame on Jiraiya and Tsunade, who weren't present, but a heartbroken Naruto told them it was as much as their fault for trusting people that weren't family to Naruto's care and they should have kept track on what was happening to him from the beginning instead of blindly trusting someone with their own child. The family knew they deserved nothing but hatred from the boy, but they were resolute to do whatever it took to get Naruto in their lives again. Order is up Naruto-kun, AM said as she handed him his ramen. Her heart went out to the poor boy. When she found out about Minato and Kushina being Naruto's parents, she was very angry at the two, she still was. How could someone just up and abandon their son after sealing the Kyuubi into him and expect everything to be okay when they showed their faces? How could they call themselves parents? She knew all about Naruto's hard life and the thought of Naruto's family out there in the world, having a good time while he suffered beatings and near deaths, made her want to attack Minato and Kushina anytime they passed by, asking her if she had seen Naruto, in which she would always say no. She looked at Naruto and sighed sadly, it had only been a few days when all this chaos started and he really looked broken. She could clearly see he wasn't focused on reality because he hadn't even made an attempt to touch his ramen, his favorite food. Naruto-kun, are you okay? AM asked in worry. Huh? Don't worry about me AM-chan. I feel great. Naruto said with a forced smile. He felt like crap. All this time he had a family and they never even made an effort to see him until a few days ago. He wanted to hate Sarutobi for not telling him about this, but to be honest, he couldn't. The old man had been there for him more times than he could count, that didn't mean he wasn't upset with the old guy though. He didn't know what to feel about his family, his emotions would numb every time he thought of them. Minato and Kushina had been doing their best to get involved in his life, but he would dodge them every time he saw them coming his way. He would even sleep in a ditch somewhere when they came and waited for him at his apartment. He didn't want to be near those two. He didn't like them and he wasn't going to pretend like he did, that happy mask was long gone. Naruto had also tried to seek him out, but he wasn't known for eluding the Anbu for nothing. If he wanted to, he could disappear for weeks without anyone finding him, he was that good. But the only person that he couldn't escape anywhere he went was Narumi. The girl could find him no matter where he was in the village and that freaked him out a lot. A 3-year-old that could track him down better than any Anbu Black Ops agent ever could. She would always run away from home whenever she got a chance and hunt him down, much to his annoyance, since he had to carefully bring her back near her home. He was not going in that estate, even if he was welcomed. He didn't hate the girl, but her parents could use her to get to him and he shivered at the prospect. He was not ready to talk to them yet. The villagers also started to treat him better ever since they found out he was the Yondame's son. But that only made him dislike them more because they put him through hell and just expected everything to be okay after what they did. It had been 5 days when all of this had started and he didn't know what to think. Okay, but I'm here if you need me, AM said. She wasn't convinced in the least by his answer and her worries only increased upon seeing bags under his eyes. God, he looked terrible. Nah yes an. Oh crap, he forgot about Narumi and her tracking ability. He was going to make a run for it when something bumped and clung to his feet. Sigh, how many times have I told you to stop calling me that, Narumi, Naruto said. Up. Narumi said gleefully, putting her hands up in the air so he could hold her. Naruto sighed again, but picked the little girl up and put her on his lap. He just couldn't hate Narumi, she was way too young to be involved in anything and she was just too adorable. Why are you here, Narumi? Naruto asked, already knowing the answer. Bernai-san. Narumi said cheerfully. How did you get out this time? Naruto asked as he rolled his eyes. Those babysitters really sucked when it came to looking after the little girl. Babysitters say I'm a tomato, Narumi pouted. She didn't know many things, but she knew what a tomato was and she didn't like tomatoes. That wasn't the answer he asked for, but he allowed a ghost of a smile at her antics. "Want some ramen?" Naruto asked and watched as Narumi's eyes lit up in curiosity. "Ramen?" Narumi asked. "Yeah," Naruto said and was bonked on the head by AM, who heard their conversation. "Naruto-kun, don't be a baka. Narumi's just a little baby, she can't have ramen." AM scolded the 12-year-old. "Ouch, okay," Naruto said as he rubbed his head. He saw Narumi trying to get a taste of the ramen on the counter and quickly stopped her. "There you are. I've been looking everywhere for you," Naruko said as she huffed. "Naruko-ni-chan." Narumi shouted happily. Naruto froze. He just knew this would happen sooner or later. He looked behind him and sighed in relief as we saw Naruko wasn't with anyone else. "How many times have I told you to stop running out the house?" Naruko scolded as she made her way inside and saw Narumi sitting on her big brother's lap. It was a touching scene and it only made her long for something similar with her brother. "Naruko," Naruto addressed emotionlessly. "Nai-san," Naruko greeted back. She didn't care when he looked at her in annoyance. "Don't call me that," Naruto said irritably. "I'll never stop calling you my Nai-san," Naruko said seriously. She meant it too. She would keep calling him her brother until her last breath. "DCH. I take it you're here for her?" Naruto said, indicating to a happy Narumi hopping on his lap and looking around curiously. "I was, but since I can see she's in good hands, I'll settle for getting some ramen," Naruko said. She made her way and sat next to an annoyed Naruto, who shifted his seat so he had a bigger distance away from her. But she didn't care, she desperately wanted her brother back and she would endure his worst if it meant obtaining his love. "What kind of ramen will you have, Naruko-chan?" AM asked chirped. She didn't like Naruko in the beginning, but that all changed when Naruko came to this place looking for Naruto. AM was so furious with Naruto's family that she called Naruko to the back room of the restaurant and proceeded to take out her anger on the girl by shouting at her and calling her horrible things. Naruko took it all with tears and never said anything back. When AM had finished shouting, she was treated to a sobbing blonde on her hands and knees, begging for forgiveness. Naruko told her everything, from her parents' abandonment of their son, to her finding out she had a brother at the age of 7, and trying on many occasions to convince her parents on seeing him, but to no avail. She even tried running away to find Naruto herself, but she easily got lost and was treated to scolding from both parents when they found her. As AM heard this, she too also cried and apologized for what she said, but Naruko said she deserved it and understood. They bonded and AM convinced her to not give up on her brother. Naruko thanked her for her support with a bittersweet smile. AM was convinced that they could become a loving brother and sister if they could work out their differences. "Mizo please," Naruko said with a smile and then looked at her brother with longing. "What?" Naruto asked in irritation, noticing Naruko staring at him for far too long. "Nothing. How are you, Nai-san?" Naruko asked awkwardly. "None of your business," Naruto replied. AM frowned. Naruto had the right to be angry, but taking it out on the girl who tried her best to be there for him was a bit much in her opinion. She decided not to voice anything, however. "Okay," Naruko said as her shoulders slumped. They ate in silence well, except for Narumi who kept screaming "What is that?" at anything new to her. When they were finished, Naruko felt it was time to leave. She would earn his forgiveness another day because Narumi needed to sleep and Naruto really looked like he didn't want her near him. "It was nice spending time with you, Nai-san," Naruko said as she took a tired Narumi from Naruto. "Whatever, you should tell your parents that those babysitters are horrible in looking after Narumi," Naruto said. "They're your parents too, you know," Naruko said with a frown. "Sai, thanks for the advice. Don't forget tomorrow is team placement in the academy." "We love you, Nai-san," Naruko said sadly and then left for the Namikaze estate. "I know you're upset, Naruto-kun, and you have the right to be, but please don't let this change who you are," AM said. "What do you mean, AM-chan?" Naruto asked. "The Naruto-kun I know wouldn't let this stop him. You never give up in what you believe in and you only strive to help anyone you can, but there was always one thing that made you different from everyone in this village," AM said as she took one of Naruto's hands in hers. "What made me different?" Naruto asked curiously. "Even after everything the villagers did to you, the torture, the beatings, the near deaths, you never resulted to hate them. After everything you've been through, you never hated the people in this village. You're not like anyone else, Naruto. You're the light that counters the darkness, you are the good that defeats evil. You're not someone who hates someone else like this, and I pray that day never comes. Hatred is a horrible emotion that could destroy someone, and that's the last thing I want for you, Naruto-kun. I'm not saying that you should forgive your family, but please don't stick to hating them," AM said. He told her all about his life when she forced it out of him. He was sad that day, and she wanted to comfort him in any way possible, so she settled into hearing his whole story, even if she knew most of it from rumors going around. She knew she should heed her own words, but she wasn't someone like Naruto, and she wasn't going to pretend to be. "I have to go home, AM-chan," Naruto said as he made his way out. AM looked on sadly. Maybe it was hopeless to try and keep Naruto on the straight and narrow after everything he had been through, all that suffering would have changed any other man, but she knew Naruto was different. Maybe she was wrong. She was surprised when Naruto turned and looked at her with a small smile. "Thanks," he said softly, and Am couldn't stop the grin that came to her face, even if she wanted to. "Okay," after long deliberation. "I have decided on the jonin that will be assigned to the passing genin," Minato said. "Team 1 will consist of, since there had to be changes because of the addition of my daughter to the roster, I have decided that Team 7 will consist of Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze and Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze with Kakashi. I want to be in that squad," Kushina said suddenly as she appeared in the room holding papers. She had been helping Minato with his paperwork ever since he came back to being Hokage, and it left her no time for her children. She desperately wanted to mend the shattered bond she had with her son. She would never stop thinking of herself as a horrible mother until she did. This was the biggest opportunity she had because now she could see Naruto all the time without him hiding from her. She felt so disgusted with herself for being so careless when it came to her baby. If Jiraiya and Tsunade ever showed their faces here, she would make sure to make them suffer, but right now, Naruto was more important. She will be there for him and no one was going to stop her, not even her husband. "Kushina-sama, I've already been picked." Kakashi was cut off with a glare. "And I should care why. I want to be on that team," Kushina said looking at Minato seriously. No one even thought of opposing and she was glad for that. "Kushina," Kakashi was hand-picked. Minato was cut off with Kushina's chakra flaring. "I don't care if Kami herself was chosen. I want to be on that squad, now." Kushina shouted and everyone knew there was no stopping her. Besides, she also had the right to request a squad since she was a qualified jonin. "I got a headache," Shikaku said. He understood why Kushina was doing this. When she was pregnant with the twins, she had always expressed her deep love for them before they were even born. So to find out that her own son had a horrible life growing up must have been a huge blow to the loving woman. This was so troublesome. He was going to be genin today. That's the first thought that came to his mind and he couldn't be any happier. He'd have missions that would take him out of this village and away from his parents. Odd, he didn't like those people. He went through hell because of their neglect and now they wanted to be a part of his life after everything he had to endure because of them. He would not hate. He would go to the point of no return because Am was like a sister to him and she was knowledgeable when it called for it. So he would listen to what she told him and not hate his family. That did not mean we was going to forgive them, no way. It did not mean he liked them either, hell to the no. They weren't parents for what they did and he easily saw Naruto as the favorite that was chosen to live a good life while he suffered at the hands of the villagers. She had the opportunity to know what it was like to have a family, what it was like to be loved and comforted when she needed it. Well, he had none of those things, well, except for Gigi and Iruka, but they still came a bit late into his childhood. Naruto was the favorite, not him, that's why they left him to rot, so he didn't like her much either. He decided to stop dwelling too much on these unwanted thoughts and look at the bright side of things. He was going to be genin. He beat the crap out of Mizuki to earn it and now he was one step closer of his lifelong dream of becoming Hokage. Minato wasn't his hero anymore. After everything, Naruto was surprised that he didn't despise the man. He was about to do his morning routine when a knock on the door stopped him. He got out of his bedroom and made his way to the entrance and opened it to see none other than Am herself on the other side, which was weird because she rarely visited his place. "Hey Am-chan." Naruto greeted enthusiastically. He was just too happy on the prospect of being a ninja and missions to care about anything else. "Oh, look at you Naruto-kun. You already have your hit I-8 on and you look so cute." Am gushed. "I'm not cute, I'm manly." Naruto said as he pouted and puffed his chest. "Sure, whatever you say." Am giggled and then smiled warmly at him. He deserved to be a shinobi. He always trained himself to exhaustion and now it was paying off. While many others had tutors, he always trained alone and that made her frown. "Naruto-kun, I really need to talk to you if it's okay right now," Am said. "Sure Am-chan. What is it?" Naruto asked curiously. "It's about Naruto." "Okay everybody, I want you to settle down," Haruka said to the excited academy graduates who were busy chatting amongst themselves. He looked around and noticed that Naruto hadn't arrived yet. He would have just gone ahead and started classes, but he decided to wait a little longer for the boy who always dreamed of being Hokage. "It seemed just yesterday when you were just a hopeless knucklehead, Naruto?" Haruka thought and smiled fondly. Naruto had really grown into an exceptional person from his early days in the academy. Haruka knew Naruto struggled in the beginning because he had no one else to teach him and even if Haruka would pitch in here and there to educate the boy, other teachers would sabotage or teach Naruto the wrong things. That made his blood boil. You know what else made his blood boil? Naruto's parents, not siblings but parents. He wasn't at all angry at Naruto's siblings because he knew they couldn't have a say in the abandonment of Naruto. No child could ever be that cruel, and from what he heard, Naruto would often be seen with his baby sister, both of his sisters yesterday eating food together, if the information he got from Tucci was correct. That was proof enough to Iruka that Naruto's sisters wanted to be with their brother. So how could Minato and Kushina, as parents, leave their own child like that, their blood? It was inexcusable. They didn't have the right to call themselves parents after that. Iruka flopped in his seat and opened a book as he tried to drown out the chitter-chatter of his former students. Thus give him a few more minutes before you start the speech, Iruka thought. Hello, is this seat taken? Naruto asked, staring down at a shy Hyuga girl, if those eyes were anything to go by. No, the girl stuttered and looked away. Hey Naruto. Come sit with us. Ino screamed to the girl. Naruto made no indication that she even heard Ino. She knew all their names because her father told her on the possible candidates of people who she will be teamed up with, and she hoped it wasn't any of those group of girls. She had been in this academy for 5 days, in which Naruto was absent, and she had a definite picture on who acts like what here. She knew their kind, fangirls. She hated girls who disgraced themselves as kunoichi just for an idiot's attention, that idiot being the Uchiha. Sasuke Uchiha, she only had one word when it came to that guy, Yaru. He was an egotistical attention seeker who relished the spotlight and loved to show off, but what's worse was he was a brooder. She didn't like him at all, and ever since she joined the academy, she had become the most popular girl, in male opinion, much to the chagrin of all those fangirls and herself. She had seen Sasuke checking her out a number of times, in which she would always feel filthy when she caught those onyx eyes looking at her like she was a naked target for his pleasure. He wasn't the only boy doing that, but he was the most noticeable, since he didn't seem ashamed of his tactics. Yaru. Of all the people around here, she noticed Hinata a lot. The girl was so shy that no one would even make an effort in talking to her. There was also the days when Naruto was absent when she saw Hinata looking at the door, as if she was waiting for someone, and then sighing in disappointment when Iruka would mark Naruto as absent from the roster. The team placement had to be postponed because of the surprising arrival of her father, which was 6 days ago. But today was the day, she will be included in a team, and Naruto had no choice but to be present or miss out. Thank you, Naruto said. Hinata just nodded her head with her eyes downcast. She wasn't expecting anything from Naruto's sister sitting next to her, but was surprised when the blonde initiated conversation. Well, you already know my name, and I know yours. I was wondering if you'd like to be friends. I see sometimes you're alone and I'm alone too, so Naruto trailed off awkwardly. She knew how to make friends, but she didn't exactly know how to interact with a shy girl without possibly saying something offensive. It was easier talking to loud girls who loved to chat because they were more of an open book than a quiet person, but she would not let that stop her. She genuinely wanted to be Hinata's friend. Why you want to be BF friends with me? Hinata stuttered, looking anywhere but the girl, trying, in vain, to hide the blush on her face. Yeah, if that's okay with you, Naruto said. She was rewarded with Hinata nodding her head, albeit crazily. Hinata couldn't say anything. She was friends with Naruto, her crush's sister. She never expected that to happen. She didn't even have friends since no one could stand her shyness. She didn't know what to make of it, so she settled for looking in front of her and keeping quiet. Cool, Naruto said sweetly and allowed herself some time to think with the silence. Well, I gave him time. Maybe he isn't coming, Iruka muttered and was about to start his speech when he was stopped. Hey, Iruka-sensei. Naruto greeted cheerfully as he made his way into the class. Iruka looked at Naruto and was surprised to see genuine happiness on that face. He knew long ago about the mask Naruto would always put on as a defense mechanism, but today that mask wasn't present. He looked really happy. Iruka smiled. Even after all the crap that's been dumped on him, Naruto always found a way to persevere. The teacher quickly schooled his face into that of annoyance. Naruto. You're late. What kind of ninja would you be if you kept skipping missions like you did classes? Iruka said, using his big-headed jutsu. I'm gonna be Hokage. Just wait and see. Naruto said in glee. What are you even doing here? Didn't you fail the exam? Shikamaru asked. Ha. If failed, then how come I got this? Naruto said, indicating to his forehead protector. Maybe because the Hokage gave you special treatment since you're his son, Kiba sneered. Don't you ever put me with that man again, dog breath. I earned this by myself, through blood, sweat and tears. Naruto said angrily, glaring at Kiba. How? Shikamaru asked. By beating Mizuki, who was discovered to be a traitor to the Leaf, Iruka answered, looking at Naruto with pride. He beat a Chunin? Choji asked, surprised. Hell, everyone was except for Naruto. Alright, enough of that. Take a seat, Naruto, so I can start my speech, Iruka said. What? I don't want to sleep because of your speech. Naruto pouted. You little brat. I'll have you know my speeches are interesting to listen to. Iruka said and grabbed Naruto by the collar and dragged him to his seat. All the while the whole class laughed. Iruka looked around, then quickly squeezed Naruto's shoulder gently to get the young blonde's attention. "I'm proud of you, Naruto," Iruka said, softly smiling at Naruto. "Thank you, Iruka-sensei," Naruto said smiling back. Iruka nodded, then made his way back and began his boring speech. Naruto looked around and saw Naruto sitting next to the weird girl. It was Hinata, right? He made his way to them and cleared his throat. "Hey, can we talk?" Naruto said seriously, gazing at a surprised Naruto. "Sure, Nai-san, anything you want," Naruto said in surprise. She didn't expect him to come to her. Hell, she expected him to shun her, but the way he was looking at her made her extremely nervous. He took a seat next to her and started. "I don't hate you," Naruto said after a pause. "What?" Naruto asked, confused. "This morning, before I came here, AM came to my place. She told me what you told her," Naruto said looking at a very nervous Naruto. "And what do you think?" Naruto asked. "I appreciate you trying to be there for me when you found out about me. I can honestly say that I can't hate you, but I can't forgive you either, not yet. I need time," Naruto said, hoping he wouldn't have to explain himself further. "What about Tusan and Kasan?" Naruto asked. "Don't talk to me about them. It will take time to forgive you, but they are a different story. I don't want to talk about them." Naruto hissed the last part in disdain. Naruto took his hand and put it to where her heart was. "Take all the time you need, Nai-san," Naruto said honestly. She would do whatever it took to earn his forgiveness, but it seemed the subject of their parents was taboo for now. Thanks, cold you let go now," Naruto sputtered with a blush. She looked down and realized that she put Naruto's hand on one of her still developing breasts, but it was too late. "Naruto Baka, you pervert." Sakura shrieked. "I'm not a pervert," Naruto shouted, but he had forgotten to remove his hand away from Naruto. That infuriated some girls as well as guys. "Bet him." Some fangirls shouted. "Geez, didn't know the guy was into stuff like that," Kiba muttered with a perverted giggle, visualizing the Uzumaki Namika's family fulfilling their incestuous desires. "Enough." Iruka screamed when he realized no one was listening to his speech, all because of the regular troublemaker, Naruto. Everyone quickly scrambled to their seats to avoid Iruka's wrath. "TCH. If you are still my students, cough alright, it's time to put you into your teams. Teammate will consist of Kiba Inuzuka, Shino Aburam and Hinata Hyuga. Your Jonin sensei will be Kurina Yuuhi," Iruka said. We're not INT the SMT team," Hinata stuttered in sadness. "It's okay. We just have to make sure we keep in contact, right?" Naruto asked with a smile. "Alright," Hinata gave a small smile in return. "Team 9 is still in circulation," Iruka said. "I just hope I end up with Sasuke-kun, but if I ended up with Naruto-kun, that wouldn't be so bad," Ino said with a faraway look. "What the hell, Ino pig?" "Naruto Baka?" Sakura asked. "The son of the Hokage who beat a Chunin?" "Yep, that's the one," Ino said with a dreamy sigh. "Team 10 will consist of Ino Yamanaka, Choji Akimichi and Shika." "What?" "Geez, Ino, you don't have to scream." "Troublesome," Shikamaru lazily said. "There has to be a mistake, Iruka-sensei. Please tell me there was a mistake. These two are lazy good-for-nothings. I can't be on a team with them." Ino ranted. "Gee, thanks," Shikamaru said, rolling his eyes. "The decisions are final, Ino. Your sensei is Asuma Sarutobi," Iruka finished, peering at the sulking platinum blonde. "Sensei, why did you skip Team 7? Sakura asked and then noticed that Naruto, Sasuke, Naruko and herself were the only ones left who hadn't been picked. "While because of a lot of changes," Iruka said, rubbing his head. "Changes?" Sakura asked. "Yeah, there was a hot debate on this team in particular. After all that, it was decided that Team 7 will consist of Sakura Haruno, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. It's just Uzumaki. That's what I grew up with and that's what I'm sticking to is, I'm on a team with Sakura-chan." Naruto cheered. "No." Sakura wailed in despair. "Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke-chan." "Yay, Sasuke-kun. Eat it pig." Sakura cheered, staring brazenly at a fuming Ino. "Will you let me finish Sasuke-chan and Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze?" Iruka finally finished. Naruto and Naruko looked at each other. Naruko smiled at him and Naruto nodded his head. They weren't that close yet, but at least they had an understanding. "Your Jonin sensei will be Kushina Yuzu." "Bang. What the hell, man? No way. I don't want to be in the same team as that woman." Naruto shouted. "What the hell is wrong with you kids? Would you ever let me finish?" Iruka fumed. "I don't want to be near her, you hear me?" Naruto shouted angrily. "The decisions are final, Naruto. If you ever want to be Hokage then you have to suck it up. Part of being a shinobi is doing things that you normally wouldn't like," Iruka said. He didn't like this either, in fact, he hated doing this, but the Hokage's word is law, so he couldn't change it. That didn't stop him from voicing his disagreement to Kushina, who would hear none of it. But hopefully, there would be a silver lining to what he said next. Naruto just sulked in his seat. His life was over. The world was ending. Why did Kami hate him? He never hurt anybody, even if they hurt him. This was so horrible. But since there was an extra addition to the roster, then another sensei was assigned to your team. Your second Jonin sensei is Kakashi Haddock, Haruka said. What, that's it? That doesn't change anything. Arg. Naruto flopped in his seat, he felt like he was dying. I'm sorry Naruto, but please just bear with it. If I could, then I would change this, but I have no power over what's going on, Haruka said sadly. Naruto just muttered under his breath and looked away in defeat. All the Jonin had arrived and took their respective teams, and the only people left was Team 7. Naruto was upset, really upset. No matter what he did, Minato and Kushina always found a way to screw with his life. He didn't want to be near them. Why couldn't they get that? They were not his parents, so they should stop thinking themselves as such. He looked around and saw that everyone was bored. Sakura kept trying to start a conversation with Sasuke. Sasuke stared at Naruto, and Naruto just glared at the Uchiha. Naruto got an idea and went to the front door. He put the board eraser on top of the door frame. He chuckled quietly and then made his way back to his seat. Nai-san? Naruto asked confusedly when she noticed what he did. Haha, Naruto chuckled evilly. The door opened and in walked the cheerful Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. Hey guys. I want you to meet me. Her statement was cut off with the eraser landing on her face. She coughed a bit and then looked around for the culprit. Who did that? Kushina asked but received no answer. She knew it was Naruto. Her background check on her son was very horrific to put it lightly, but it helped her understand what he had been through. She had never cried so hard in her entire life. I want you guys to meet me at the roof, Kushina said, then shunshin out of the room. They all made their way to the roof and saw Kushina and Kakashi waiting for them. Yo, Kakashi grated with a wave. Okay, sit down. Today, we're going to get to know each other, Kushina said as the children took their seats. We want you guys to introduce yourselves, Kakashi said. Shouldn't you guys introduce yourselves first so we know how to? Sakura suggested then looked at Sasuke, who was still looking at Naruto. Okay, then I'll start. My name's is Kakashi Haddock. My likes do not concern you. My dislike are none of your business, and my hobbies are classified, Kakashi said and received passive looks from everyone. I'll show you how it's done. My name is Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. My likes are reading, training, and all my children. My dislikes are perverts, criminals and anyone who would dare harm my babies. My dream is spending more time with my whole family, Kushina said, smiling motherly towards Naruto, but received a frown from said blonde. Okay, now it's your turn, Kakashi said to the kids. He noticed Kushina deflate a little. My name is Sakura Haruno, I love reading and a certain someone. I dislike Naruto. My dream is to be with a certain someone and make a family together, Sakura said. Everyone rolled their eyes at her, even Kushina, since it was plain obvious who Sakura was talking about. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. My likes are Ramen, Ayam-chan and Iruka-sensei. My dislikes are certain people. My dream is to become the best Hokage that ever lived. Naruto cheered at the last part. He meant it too. He will be Hokage and he didn't need any help from his family to achieve his dream. Kushina looked down sadly when she heard him say that he disliked certain people. No matter how many times she went by it, she couldn't find an excuse for what she did to him and there was nothing she could say to change his mind. She wouldn't give up though. She would work until her last breath to earn his forgiveness and having him in her team would at least allow her a start. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. My likes and dislike are none of your business and my dream, no, my goal is to kill a certain someone and revive my clan, he said the last one staring shamelessly at Naruto, which didn't go unnoticed by the mother, who gave a disapproving frown. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. My likes are Tusan, Kasan, Narumi-chan and Nai-san. My dislikes are Uchiha. My dream is to be known as the best kunoichi that ever lived, Naruto said. Well now that we got that out of the way. I'll let you know that tomorrow you guys will be having a test to see if you're ready to be real shinobi, Kakashi said and waited for someone to scream, but we already did the test. He was surprised when they all kept quiet. Will the test involve the two of you? Sakura finally asked. Well, after discussing things, Kushina-sama and I decided that I will be the only one testing you. Don't eat any breakfast or you'll throw up tomorrow, Kakashi said as he shunshined out of there. Get some rest guys because you'll need it tomorrow. I'll see you at home Naruto and I would like to talk to you Naruto before you leave, Kushina said the last part to a retreating Naruto, who silently cursed a little too loudly. Everyone left and now it was just Kushina and Naruto. Hello, Sachi, Kushina said. What can I do for you Kushina-sama? Naruto asked, trying to dull his anger but failing miserably. Sachi, please don't call me that I'm so sore. Save it. I don't want your apology. And let me get one thing clear, I am only in your team by force and nothing else. Don't for 1 second think that everything's okay between us. You left me. You left me. That's all the reason I need. The reason I haven't quit as soon as I heard your name is because I have a dream that no one will stop me from achieving. I don't hate you, but I don't like you either. Just keep your distance and I'll keep mine, Kushina-sama, Naruto said with finality and left a heartbroken mother to her thoughts. Kushina would not cry even as the tears gathered in her eyes. She didn't deserve to cry, she didn't deserve sympathy, she didn't deserve to be called a mother, a parent, after one of her children suffered so badly. She did deserve every word he said to her though, and she knew it. It wasn't going to be easy getting her son back, but Kushina refused to live a life without him. He was her son, her Sachi, and it was time she took responsibility for her idiotic and careless mistakes. She looked through all the records of people Naruto befriended in his life and found that Iruka really stood out. She apologized to Iruka, who was very angry at her and Minato rightfully so about what she did to her son, and thanked him for being there for Naruto. The only thing Iruka told her was that he would only forgive her when Naruto did, and she understood that. She decided to think of ideas to show Naruto that she truly did love him, and she truly felt regretful for what happened as she made her way home. Kakashi mentally sighed. This team was hopeless, absolutely meaningless, this wasn't even a team, just some random genin performing individually and horribly at that fact. When he was recommended by the council to Sarutobi he was excited to teach the Uchiha prodigy because they both shared something that no one else in Konoha did, the Sharingan. It wasn't as if he forgot about his other students as well, but he wanted to focus on grooming Sasuke into an elite shinobi and use the team as support for the Uchiha's benefit. It couldn't be called favoritism if all members of the team were included now could it? Well that was all before his sensei had showed up, prompting the postponement of the placements. He told everyone of his stage death and leaving Naruto to the trust of Jiraiya, Tsunade and the village as well, who all ended up stabbing the Namikazes in the back. Minato was really disappointed in Kakashi as well. Kushina flat out disliked him now, going so far as to call Kakashi a disgrace to the shinobi code when he chose to ignore Naruto's plight. Kakashi also voiced his disagreement to that, calling Minato and Kushina hypocrites for something like that, which he can easily admit now was a huge mistake. First off, Minato and Kushina didn't leave Naruto with just some random stranger, they left him with people they considered family, and even though it was a terrible thing to do to a child, especially considering a child needed parent figures to grow and mature, they left Naruto with people that they thought could qualify as parental figures in Naruto's upbringing. Kakashi could see it, Naruto, grown and trained by the two legendary Sannin, that would be every child's and parent's dream, and he could see why Minato and Kushina would choose not to visit until now, since Naruto would be safe with Tsunade and Jiraiya, teaching him their skills and techniques, grooming him to be a legendary prodigy, telling him about his parents since the S-rank secret didn't apply to them, but the two Sannin just left the kid high and dry, without a care in the world, and Kakashi was only left with questions. Why did Minato and Kushina leave Naruto in the first place? Why did Jiraiya and Tsunade leave the kid as well? They already knew it couldn't be revealed to anyone of who Naruto's parents were because that would put Naruto in greater danger with people who might hate Minato taking their anger out on Naruto. So why leave him? Kakashi couldn't come up with anything. He looked at Naruto, who was tied to a pole, and then looked at his genin team who had lunch ready to be eaten and decided to make his exit. I'll be back in a bit. You will stay there Naruto and all of you are not to feed him understood? Kakashi asked and received nods from three heads and something that suspiciously sounded like grumbled curses from the blonde knucklehead. He made his way to some nearby trees and bushes and met with Kushina, who was using the environment to her advantage and concealing herself from the view of the genin squad, just as discussed. How did they do? Kushina asked seriously as she stared at her son who was tied to a pole. She knew they did terribly, hell she watched the whole test and couldn't hide the bitter disappointment and guilt in watching Naruto just charge into battle without a strategy or plan and swing wild punches that would never hit the intended target. Kami she failed so miserably as a mother. Naruto didn't even seem like a ninja, just a normal boy who had to resort to street fighting to cover for lack of skill set. He would get himself killed if he went on missions, and that was one thing that filled her with so much dread that she had to control her stomach every time that thought crossed her mind. She couldn't understand this though. She read from reports that he beat Mizuki at Chunin using the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, no other kid could do that yet, so how on earth could he be this terrible? In all honesty, they failed horribly, Kakashi said indifferently. He didn't really care if this team passed or failed really because the council would demand him to be put with Sasuke, whether in another team or alone, just like that he would teach the Uchiha. Name their weaknesses, Kushina ordered. She didn't like Kakashi at all right now, he chose to be a lazy good-for-nothing prick while Naruto suffered, he was trash in her book no matter what he said. She knew she was no better, but she was determined to fix things at all costs with her son. Sakura does have book smarts, but she lacks any real form of skill when it comes to jutsu, she easily fell for a simple genjutsu because she was so fixated on Sasuke to focus on the task at hand. Sasuke could be considered a prodigy when it comes to his skill set as I read in reports, but he has a loner attitude. He chooses to fight battles by himself instead of relying on his teammates for help and thinking of them as nuisances instead of allies. Naruto is by far the worst student I have ever tested. He has no strategy or plan when it comes to battles. He is one-track minded, and that is a huge weakness. He has basically no skill set whatsoever, and he puts himself in danger because he is basically an open book, and enemies can read his movements quite easily and kill him in the process. Naruto by far is the best member of the squad. She has a variety of skills and jutsu at her arsenal, including that little Rasengan that nearly got me a number of times. She is fast and very knowledgeable in ninjutsu and taijutsu. I have to commend you for teaching her. She even figured out the true reason for the test, that it wasn't about getting the bells alone, but together as a team, but the other members are not listening, Kakashi surmised in honesty. I don't understand though. Naruto beat a Chunin using cage bunshin. How could he be this terrible if he was able to do that? Kushina asked curiously. I would sum up his win to sheer perseverance and dumb luck, especially considering he was the worst performer in the academy, even being labeled as the dead last, Kakashi said. Hami dead last? Kushina asked, shocked at such a thing. Not only did the adults hurt Sachi but kids as well. She really wanted a punching bag council member right about now. He failed the academy 3 times and performed terribly in every class he had, Kakashi said. Oh Sachi, Kushina breathed out. This was too much to take in. The depths of Naruto's suffering never ceased to amaze and disgust her. This was not going to stand. Minato was going to do something about this, and she knew exactly where he should start, the village council. Those disgusting monsters were going to get what was coming to them, and from there Minato will make this village pay for what they did to her Sachi. She would make sure of that. It was unfortunate, Kakashi said lazily and received a glare from the mother. How would you rate them? Kushina asked in irritation. He has the gall to say that and yet he did nothing. She wanted to strangle him. Sakura isn't genin level, but she has a bit of promise. Sasuke would be low to mid genin. Naruto would be high genin to low chunin. Naruto is not ready to be a shinobi, Kakashi said. Don't run to conclusion about my son, Kushina spat. Kakashi was getting on her last nerve. Just my opinion, Kushina-sama, Kakashi said with an eye smile. Right, Kushina said. You do realize I really have to fail them now, since they hadn't figured out the true meaning to the test, Kakashi said looking at the genin team. He was about to move when a hand landed on his chest and prevented him from doing so. Not yet. Give them time, Kushina said, preventing Kakashi from going anywhere. But Kushina-sama, I said give them time and I mean it, Haddock, Kushina said seriously. They had to pass. They just had to. She believed in them no matter how badly they did. Okay, so since I'll be here a while longer, I was wondering if you could clear some things for me, Kakashi said. And what do you want cleared? Kushina asked. Why did you leave Naruto? Kakashi got straight to the point. I didn't want to at first. I wanted to take him with us so we could train him in using our styles and possibly teach him in suppressing the Kyuubi soul, but things didn't work out that way, Kushina said sadly. She would regret that decision till the day she died. May I ask why? Kakashi inquired. If you remember correctly, there was a masked man who attacked the village and freed the Kyuubi to destroy Konoha. I was heavily fatigued from giving birth to Naruto and Naruko to stop him. The Kyuubi went on a rampage. We fought tooth and nail to protect our babies and took the worst from the Bijuu when it tried attacking our children, so Minato had no choice but to seal the Kyuubi into our children. Although I refused this, he sealed the yin and yang chakra into Naruto. Naruto was given the soul of the fox. Minato survived the sealing process although he was barely alive. Minato told me that in order for the Kyuubi to be freed then you had to have both children together to extract it because the soul and chakra need to be together as one in order to exist. It didn't matter what type of the Bijuu's chakra it was. So in order to make sure that didn't happen, Minato agreed with Jiraiya and Tsunade, who healed us from our fatal wounds, to look after Naruto and make sure he grew into a strong and capable shinobi. Well, we did the same to Naruto. Both children needed to be as far away as possible from each other in case that man returned and wanted the Kyuubi. We were to return to Konoha when we were sure that things were alright and safe for Naruto to see us. Jiraiya and Tsunade agreed to it and I honestly thought that they would keep to their word, but imagine my utter shock when I found out my son grew up alone, abandoned, unloved and untrained. It makes a mother think on what kind of a filthy human being she is in allowing this to happen, Kushina said in self-loathing. She didn't care that Kakashi heard all this, he could really keep a secret when it called for it, but that didn't change her view of him. You shouldn't put the blame on yourself. Sometimes we all make mistakes, Kakashi said. No, I need to blame myself so I don't forget what I'm trying to achieve, a connection with my entire family, Kushina said. It made her feel horrible on the inside, all the self-hatred, but she would endure it until Naruto forgave her. What about Jiraiya and Tsunade? Kakashi asked. Let's just say I better not find them before anyone else does, Kushina said venomously. They will deserve nothing but pain for betraying Minato and her like this. Right, well I guess we should watch the kids, huh, Kakashi suggested. Fine with me, Kushina said and then looked at her genin candidates. Arg. Freaking ropes. Naruto said as he struggled on the pole. Nai-san, stop it. You have to face the punishment, Naruto said. She didn't like it, but it had to be done. So Naruto, I've noticed you didn't seem interested in any of those other guys in our class, but you always looked my way from time to time, Sasuke said. Only because I had to make sure you weren't trying anything, Uchiha, Naruto spat his name and disstate. I know you like me. I have to admit I find you attractive, so how about I give you chance? Sasuke said with confidence. Team, Naruto said, then decided to ignore him altogether and focus on her brother. Sasuke-kun, I was wondering. You're annoying, Sasuke emphasized the last word because it seemed like he had to keep repeating himself to the pink-haired fangirl. Sakura pouted. How the hell could he not notice her but Naruto, who looked like that stupid perverted jutsu Naruto used? It didn't make any sense. Nai-san, stop struggling and listen, all of you, Naruto said seriously. What? Naruto asked in annoyance. Don't you guys get it? This test wasn't about getting the bells alone. Think about it, Kakashi is a jonin, and technically we're not genin yet. It would be impossible to get the bells alone, even together, which was exactly the point of the test, Naruto said. I don't get it, Naruto said confusedly. Aka. She's saying that we were supposed to go after Kakashi together, Sakura said. She was annoyed with this idiot and she didn't appreciate being shown up on her intelligence by Naruto's female twin. TCH. Yeah right. You're hot, but I don't think you're right, Sasuke said. Wow, you really are a team. I believe you, Naruto said confidently. It's not just enough for you to believe it, Nai-san, we all have to, Naruto said staring at the other two teammates. And what's in it for me if I believe you? Sasuke asked with a smirk. Nothing from me, that's for sure, Naruto said seriously. She can never admit a time when she disliked someone so greatly as the Uchiha. And you and I can be together, Sasuke flirted. Team? That's gross. Naruto shouted in disgust as he glared at the Uchiha. What's it to you, dope? Sasuke asked in annoyance. Listen very carefully, Sasuke. I don't like you and I'll never like you. You disgust me and I can't believe that you actually think that I would even give us a chance. You're pathetic in my eyes and that notion won't change anytime soon. So you better watch yourself before I lose my patience and rip your spine clean from your back without any effort, Naruto said as she glared murderously at Sasuke. Listen here, you bitch, don't talk to us. I believe you, Sasuke cut off Sakura's rant. He didn't care what Naruto said, he wanted her and would not stop until he got her and revived his clan. She wasn't like any other girl he ever met, she was powerful, beautiful, even if she did look like Naruto's Warrick no Jutsu, and that's perfect wife material in his eyes. Believe what exactly? Naruto asked in confusion. That the test was about teamwork. I mean, it would make sense if you look at it, Sasuke said. I believe you too, Sakura also added in, but everyone knew the only reason she was doing it was because Sasuke did it. Good. Let's share a bit of our food with Nai-san, I can see you're pretty hungry, Naruto said as she stared at Naruto, who kept his eyes on the food. Kakashi-sensei said we shouldn't feed him, Sakura said in worry. I don't care. He's hungry, we have plenty of food and we already failed the thing to begin with, Naruto said as she held a bento for Naruto to take a bite out of, which the blonde did. Fine, Sakura grumbled. Well, I'll be. Your daughter is truly surprising, Kakashi said from a tree he was hiding in with Kushina. Yes, she is, Kushina said proudly. Well, might as well go and give them the good news, Kakashi said and schooled his face into that of mock anger before making his way to the newly formed Team 7. Kushina was proud of them. They haven't worked out their differences yet and it's still too early to make any solid observation, but at least it was a start. Naruto, his performance was horrible and that was something she would not sit idly by and leave be. He was her son and student now and she would not stand for poor performances from him, he deserved so much better and she was prepared to make sure he got everything he deserved. Naruto flopped on his couch. He was so tired. The test really took a lot out of him and that said a lot since he knew he had more stamina than anyone else his age. Naruto really came through, she figured out the true meaning of the test and he passed. When he told AM the ramen waitress didn't even waste any time when she jumped over the counter, squealing, and glomped him to the ground, he still blushed every time he thought of that. Tomorrow he would start with his very first mission and he was so excited. What would it be? Will he be saving a princess? Will he be helping out in a battle? Will he be taking care of some important person? So many thoughts ran through his head, but a knock on the door stopped him from thinking further. He was confused, ever since he was announced as the fourth son the landlord never came around anymore, in fact the landlord said he could stay here for free. He was offered many other better apartments by other people and his parents too when they figured out that he wasn't coming to the Namika's estate, but he turned every one of them down. He didn't need their suck-up charity. The knocking continued and now he was suspicious of who could be behind that door. "Who is it?" Naruto called. "It's mommy sweetie," said Kushina on the other side. Naruto sighed in despair. He knew he couldn't get away from her since she was his new sensei. Kami, that was the only thing bad about his situation right now. He grudgingly got up from the couch and made his way to the door and opened up to see Kushina holding Narumi. "Hello Sachi," Kushina greeted warmly but didn't receive the same from her son. "What can I do for you Kushina-sama?" Naruto asked and saw his mother flinch a bit. "Nai-san." Narumi screamed gleefully when she saw Naruto and stretched her little hands, trying to grab a hold of him. "Hello Narumi," Naruto said indifferently. He didn't hate the girl, but he wasn't going to act like he usually did, especially since Kushina was here. "She wanted to see you so badly so I decided to bring her along." "I really hope you don't mind," Kushina said. She had gotten rid of those horrible babysitters who let her baby run around without supervision and gotten a woman named Aki. Aki loved Narumi and Narumi loved her back. Aki made sure Narumi wouldn't run away to random places and Kushina was glad for that. Every time she asked Narumi where she would go Narumi would just say Nai-san and it made Kushina wonder if Narumi spent her time away from home with Naruto, but she would quickly squash the idea. She couldn't find him on many days and she doubted Narumi could. "Whatever. What do you want?" Naruto got straight to the point. He wanted his mother gone as quick as possible. "Sai, to be honest I'm not here as your mother but as your Jonin sensei." "Can I come in?" Kushina said seriously. Naruto was confused but he let the woman in nonetheless. "So?" Naruto prompted as they took their seats. "I came here because I wanted to inform you of your performance today," Kushina said. "What about it?" Naruto asked with a frown. "Naruto, from what Kakashi has told me your performance was the worst of the team," Kushina said. "Tch. It wasn't that bad," Naruto glared at Kushina. "Sachi, I'm not trying to demean you, but something like this could end up killing you in the future," Kushina said unflinchingly. "Well, I did train alone, you know, for all my life," Naruto said angrily. She didn't have the right to point out his faults, even if she was his sensei. "I know I went through records of your progress in the Ninja Academy, and after careful investigation it was discovered that you were sabotaged with your tests and were trained in the wrong styles of combat," Kushina said. She too was getting angry just by thinking about it. "Tell me something I don't know," Naruto grumbled. "After talking to Min the Hokage it was agreed that you lacked heavily on many essential skills needed by a shinobi in order to survive on the battlefield," Kushina said. "I don't need you tell me what I don't care about. Just wait and see. I'll be Hokage and then you will all think differently," Naruto said seriously. "That's the reason I'm here, to help you with your goal. I have special permission from the Hokage himself to give you extra training due to you lacking any proper education to begin with," Kushina said. "I don't need your charity Namikaze," Naruto spat. He was getting tired of people coming to him and offering him things as a sign of their guilt and remorse. Stupid villagers. "This isn't charity Naruto. These are things you will need in order to progress in your shinobi career," Kushina said seriously. "Well, I don't need it," Naruto said stubbornly. "I'm sorry Sachi, I love you very much but right now I am not asking you as your mother but ordering as your sensei to attend this training," Kushina said seriously and felt it was time to leave, so she stood up and made her way to the door with Narumi. "Just so you know. I will never forgive myself for what you went through," Kushina said softly, then left his apartment. Naruto just grumbled under his breath. Kushina was really clever, making time for him and her anytime she could. He didn't like this at all, especially considering both of his parents were involved in this, but he was too tired to think straight, so he made his way into his bedroom and decided to rest for the night. Minato was signing the last amount of paperwork for the day. Coming back into power was okay at first, but as soon as he realized what these people did to his son, he started to dislike Konoha as a whole. The first day, when he announced his return, the entire village celebrated and cheered for him, but something else they said made him shocked with horror. When the crowd was cheering for him, a civilian stated that they could finally get rid of the Kyuubi brat. It didn't take long for him to piece together who they were talking about. He was furious at them, especially when he found out about Naruto's mistreatment. How could Naruto grow up living alone? Where had Jiraiya and Tsunade gone off to? Why didn't the people he know as friends pitch in to help Naruto? Sarutobi was a good man, but to allow Naruto to suffer like this didn't go well with Minato, although he couldn't be any better in that since he was never involved in Naruto's life. He felt like crap every day, knowing that he messed up so royally with his own child. He desperately wanted to have a connection with his son, but right now he was sure Naruto still hated his guts. He wasn't going to give up on him though, not until he paid Naruto back fully for his neglect and suffering. Originally he didn't want Naruto to be put with Kakashi as a sensei because he didn't trust his former student anymore, but the council outvoted him on that, much to his chagrin. The council, bastards, the lot of them. He let them get their way with having Kakashi in Naruto's team because he was still in depression of failing his son, but now that he had a clearer head he could finally implement a plan of action against these evil people. Starting tomorrow he will make sure that Konoha knows how fully they messed up. He couldn't approach Naruto yet and had agreed to let Kushina be in his team because the mother took this situation much harder than he did. She was literally a broken woman trying to fix herself and her mistakes. He knew the time would come when he had no choice but to speak to Naruto. He was sure Naruto would try to beat him up, but he was fine with that. He would let Naruto vent his anger. For now he had to formulate plans on making sure he had an iron grip on Konoha. Council room. It was way too early in the morning for a council meeting, but Minato had demanded all council members to report immediately to the council room, and although some council members would have refused at first, the Anbu that he sent to deliver the messages were dead serious on possible repercussions that would be implemented by the Hokage himself if they disobeyed his orders. So now here they were, waiting for the Hokage to make his entrance into the packed room filled with shinobi and civilian council members alike. They were all frustrated due to three things. They had been waiting for a few hours for Minato to arrive, they were tired because Minato had demanded an audience with them late at night and now it was early into the morning and they didn't like to be ordered around since they were more used to doing that themselves. "Where is he?" Tsume shouted in anger. She was so tired and didn't appreciate being made to wait for someone else. "I'm not sure but we have to be patient," Shikaku said tiredly. He felt like lead. This is absolute nonsense. If he expects us to be here on time then shouldn't he show the same courtesy? Danzo said irritably from his sitting position. "Jill man. I'm sure he had something to do," Choza said. "Minato will hear from me about this," Kaharu said. She didn't like this at all. They were starting to get really irritated when suddenly they were blinded with a yellow flash and Minato finally made his appearance. "Finally. Where have you been? We waited for hours." Hamaru said in annoyance. "I decided to have a nice deserved nap. I just woke up a few minutes ago, but dang was that a good sleep," Minato said happily. Kushina came home and asked him to finally do something about these people, and he was only happy to agree with his wife. He purposefully made them wait for him for hours so he could annoy the crap out of them. He actually was asleep until now. "How dare you? Who do you think you are to put us through this, Minato?" Kaharu shouted in anger. He had the gall to pull a stunt like this. "How dare I?" Minato asked in mock surprise. They didn't even know it, they were in deep trouble already and they were still acting like nothing ever happened. They were still acting like they didn't do anything wrong to his son and boy was he going to milk this for everything it was worth. "Before I answer your question first things first Anbu." Minato commanded and not a moment sooner there was an Anbu agent behind each council member, ready to attack at any moment. "What is the meaning of this Minato?" Kaharu shouted in confusion. "You do not call me by my name. You call me Hokage-sama, do you hear me?" Minato said. He was deadly serious now. "What?" Kaharu was really confused with all of this. "Hokage-sama, could I ask what's going on here?" Inoichi asked when he noticed that everyone was too shocked to do or say anything. "I'm glad you asked. Starting from today, there will be a lot of changes around here," Minato said seriously. "Like what?" Choza asked curiously. "As from this day, the village council is disbanded effective immediately," Minato said. There was an uproar of disagreement and demand for explanation. "Just perfect." "Silence." Minato shouted and everyone shut their mouths. "You can't do this me Hokage-sama. The village needs a council in order to function properly and we all need to vote on a decision for it to be permitted when it comes to village matters," Kaharu said evenly. "You're wrong there Kaharu. I am the Hokage. I run this village. You are just the council, the advisors to my cause in protecting this village and assisting anyone in need, but you have proven to me that you are not capable in looking after every villager," Minato said. "Is this because of your son? You have to realize Hokage-sama that some things are out of our hands. The villagers acted on their own accord when it came to the boy, so we can't be held responsible for the villagers' mistakes." "Bad move." Kaharu couldn't stop herself and by the time she said the last word she already knew, she just dug herself a bigger grave. "I actually never thought I'd hear that, but I'm grateful. This information is all I need to prove your lack of action in my son's plight. Furthermore it proves your incompetence. You will all be brought before Ibiki for information gathering, just to find out if you were involved in my son's suffering, as well as to determine what you really thought of him, and I'm pretty sure most of you thought on the same line as the villagers, that Naruto was the demon brat." Minato sneered at all of them. "You cannot do this. I am Hyuga head and I will not tolerate this behavior whatsoever." Hiashi finally spoke when he had enough of Minato. "I can and I will. You wanna know something else? I don't give a damn what any of you have to say. The moment you ignored or participated in my son's suffering you made an enemy out of me so you can complain all you want, but it won't change a damn thing," Minato said angrily. "What will happen to us once Ibiki receives the information you require?" Shikaku asked carefully. "It all depends on the information. Just hope that I don't find out anything damaging for your sakes, Minato said indifferently. Let's get this over with, Danzo said. He wanted to get out of here as fast as possible, so Minato couldn't find out his secrets. He was about to get up, but a hand on his shoulder stopped him. He looked behind and saw two more Anbu, ready for battle. TSK, I've got a different punishment for you, my friend. Even when Minato said friend, the venom and disdain in his voice was still prominent. What do you mean? Danzo asked in shock. I mean you are being arrested, Minato said seriously. On what charges? Danzo demanded. Sarutobi has informed me that on many occasions you tried to make a weapon out of my son. After careful investigation by my Anbu, it was also discovered that many of your root bases have been active, although it couldn't be discovered what was actually going on in them. You already know what I said about root, so for disobeying orders you will be sent to a Biki for interrogation, and then afterwards you will be put in a cell, Minato explained. This is blasphemy. You have no proof of anything, and you can't just use your power on everyone just because of what happened to your son. You are letting your emotions control you, and it's safe to say that you are not fit to be Hokage. Danzo shouted in anger. Oh, by the way. Don't even think about trying anything behind my back. I will kill you, without mercy, understood? Minato asked everyone in the vicinity and was proud to get nods. I'm sorry Sarutobi-sama, Nico said before grabbing Sarutobi's wrist. It's alright Nico. You don't need to take Sarutobi, Minato said. For a second there I thought you wanted me to be put away and looked up for life, Sarutobi said. Well, you're not my favorite person right now, but you have done so much for Naruto, so you're not as bad as everyone else. I want you to go to the T&I Tower and make sure that no ex-council member will be trying to bribe their way out of this, Minato said. I will do my best, Minato, and I'm sorry for not being there enough for Naruto in his time of need. What are going to do about the civilians? I hope it's nothing horrible because as Hokage it is your job to protect this village and villagers within it. Killing them would make you unfit for this job, Sarutobi said. Haha, Minato chuckled evilly, and Sarutobi was reminded of Naruto's pranking tendencies. This couldn't end well. Later during the day. This sucks. Naruto screamed in despair, annoying the hell out of everyone else. What did you think D-rank mission meant, you moron? Sakura asked annoyedly. I've had enough of you. Why do you always call him names, huh? Naruto screamed angrily at Sakura. Sasuke just stared ahead of him. This had nothing to do with him. Because he's a good for enough. Kushina screamed, stopping them in their tracks. This team seemed soof. Every single one of them had their own special talents, and theoretically they should be a good team when combined, but that was not the case. They were mostly at each other's throats. They were painting a shed, which was the mission, for a client. Naruto had immediately thought that since he was now a shinobi he'd be going on big missions, which wasn't the case. He had been complaining the whole day, and adding to the fact that it was a very hot day in Konoha, then some of them could be justified for being so grumpy. You guys need to relax and continue with your mission, Kakashi said while reading his book. What did I say about you reading that book in front of children? Kushina hissed angrily, and Kakashi, it seemed that even the senseis were no better. Well, I am being careful, Kakashi said, never noticing Kushina starting to fume even more. Kushina was about to kill him, but then decided against it. She didn't want to give these kids the wrong impression about her. She took deep breaths and calmed herself down a little bit. If you don't put that book away, I will slowly torture you by peeling your skin off with the blunt side of my sword, Kushina whispered with a disturbing smile. Kakashi quickly complied. He knew when a woman was being serious. Kushina turned back to the bickering genin. That is enough out of all of you. You're a team now and you shouldn't constantly be at each other's throats. You will never improve on your skills if you keep doing this, and every other genin will be above you, Kushina said in a scolding manner. After some time they finally finished with their D-rank missions for the day, and Kushina felt like it was time for them to go home and prepare for tomorrow. Alright guys. You did well, but your teamwork needs to improve, otherwise there isn't a point to have Team 7, Kakashi said. Tomorrow we will start with training you on the different ways chakra is used and what it is useful for, Kushina said, and saw their eyes light up, well except for Sasuke and Naruto, the latter already knowing such things. Will I be training with you, Kakashi-sensei? Naruto asked hopefully. Sorry Naruto, but I'll be in charge of teaching Sakura and Sasuke. Well, Kushina-sama teaches you and Naruto, Kakashi said with an eye smile. He would have preferred to train Sasuke alone, but Kushina was having none of that. Sakura still needed a lot of work, and Kushina made it clear to train the girl so she could match her teammates in skill and power, if it was possible. Naruto deflated a little bit, which didn't go unnoticed by Kushina. Just great. Good job guys, and we'll see you tomorrow. Naruto, don't forget your appointment for this afternoon, Kushina reminded the blonde. What is she talking about, Dobe? Sasuke asked as they started walking away. None of your business, team, Naruto said irritably. Don't call Sasuke that. Sakura shouted, was about to bonk Naruto when a hand stopped her. Don't you dare, Naruto hissed in anger with slitted eyes. Sakura was getting on her last nerve. Just let her go Naruto said, he just didn't care anymore. Naruto let up on her hold, but she continued to openly glare at the pink-haired banshee while they walked to their respective homes. "Oh," Sasuke said after an awkward pause. Later in the afternoon, here she was, waiting for her son. Kushina had been at training ground 7, waiting and waiting for any sign of Naruto. He was supposed to be here an hour ago, but there was no sign of him, and Kushina wanted to give him the choice to come. He needed to come here on his own, or there was no point in trying to get him to trust her. She didn't doubt that he would come, she just knew he would be here sooner or later, so she waited patiently, even if she was an impatient woman. If he didn't come then she would feel really sad and hopeless, she really wanted to connect with him, and this was the best she could offer someone who didn't like her. Naruto was with her, meditating. The little girl insisted on coming so she could help her Niacin with his training, and even though Kushina disagreed at first, she was happy to have brought Naruto along. Kushina's mood started to drop as the day continued to drift away, she had been waiting for 2 hours now. She just knew if she didn't see Naruto today that she would cry. She wouldn't blame him for not coming to training, even if she had ordered him as his sensei, it would be what she deserved since she felt like she was such a horrible person. Her ears picked up someone who was approaching them and she looked on hopefully, only for her mood to drop again when she spotted one of her former students, Kurenai Yuhi. "Hello Kushina-sama," Kurenai greeted warmly and a little nervously. When her former sensei came back Kurenai was so happy to have a back in her life, but that happiness was short-lived. As soon as Kushina found out what this village did to her son she distanced herself from everyone, even Kurenai. When Kurenai was finally able to talk to Kushina, she was met with cold indifference from the mother, who asked if she did anything to help her son in Konoha, to which she replied, very shamefully, that she hadn't done a thing. Ever since then Kushina wanted nothing to do with her, saying she felt ashamed for even training her as her student. Kurenai never let anything get the best of her, but Kushina was different, she was her sensei, and Kurenai really idolized the woman for her bravery and kind heart. She meant everything to Kurenai, so to hear her idol saying things like that really tore Kurenai apart. She motioned for Kushina to follow her into the woods, and Kushina complied, albeit grudgingly. When they were in a secluded area Kushina started. "What do you want?" Kushina asked coldly. Kurenai struggled not to flinch at the cold look she was receiving. I heard that you were giving extra lesson, and I came to ask for your help," Kurenai said carefully. "Why would I help you?" Kushina asked with slitted eyes. Kurenai's body shook a little bit, but she steeled her resolve. She stepped to the side, and Kushina finally noticed the second person that was with Kurenai. She had short lavender hair, light lavender eyes with no pupils, she was wearing a baggy jacket and looked extremely nervous. Kushina already knew who this girl was, hell her face looked just like Hitomi's did, and Kushina knew that this was Hitomi's child. Kurenai then bowed until her head touched the grass. "This is Hinata Hyuga. She has so much potential to be a great kunoichi, but it seems to be difficult for her to put all her effort into training and sparring. I have tried my best, but even I know it isn't enough. I beg you Kushina-sama. Please train." "Get out of my sight," Kushina cut her off in distaste. The gall of this woman. "Please Kushina-sama. I know you're angry at me, but please help Hinata. Not for my sake but for hers. You're the best sensei that I have ever known, you're my idol, and I know you can help her. Please I'm begging you." Kurenai pleaded as tears fell down her face and onto the grass. She also wanted to beg for forgiveness, but even she knew that now wasn't the right time for it, Hinata had to come first. "Leave," Kushina said. Kurenai stood up and her head dropped in despair. Hinata. "Let's not anger Kushina-sama any further," Kurenai said sadly, she was about to lead Hinata out of the field when she was stopped. "Leave Hinata here," Kushina ordered. Kurenai's head whipped to Kushina in surprise. Kushina looked indifferent, but Kurenai knew better. She gave a grateful nod and left the field. Kushina mentally sighed in relief, that was hard. She looked at Hinata, who was crying openly in front of her. This was very strange to her. She walked slowly to Hinata but was surprised when the girl screamed and backed away. "Please don't hurt me." Hinata sobbed as she covered her face with her arms. She saw the interaction between Kurenai and Naruto's mother and she truly feared for her life. Kushina's eyes softened when she heard that. She knew all about Hitomi's death and if Hinata was anything like her mother, kind, good-natured, then she had probably suffered at the hands of those cold and calculating Hyugas. Hinata didn't look like a kunoichi, just a frightened girl trying to shield herself from life and its harsh reality. Hinata was a nervous wreck, her body was shaking like a leaf and she was bawling her eyes out. Kushina couldn't take it anymore and quickly made her way to the little girl. Hinata was crying. She couldn't stop herself. She must have looked so pathetic and useless, her father was right all along. At first she started crying because she feared Kushina, but now she was crying for many other things, her weaknesses, her failures, her uselessness, how if she died, then nobody would miss her. Niji hated her father wanted nothing to do with her, and she was even too shy to talk to her little sister, she was just a waste of space. She stiffened when she felt arms envelop her in a tight embrace, and when she looked she saw Kushina, kneeling and smiling softly at her. "It's okay, Hinata. Let it out. Let it all out," Kushina said softly and placed Hinata's head on her shoulder. It didn't take long before Hinata held on to Kushina, buried her face on shoulder, and bawled her eyes out while Kushina kept comforting her with soft and kind words. Hinata cried long and hard. Kushina could already feel the tear stains on her shoulder, but she didn't let go. After some time Hinata's crying died down and now the two were only hugging each other. "Do you feel better?" Kushina asked softly and received a nod from Hinata. Kushina was going to help her in any way she could. "I'll do my best, Hitomi. I promise," Kushina thought in determination. "Thank you," Hinata whispered softly and embarrassingly with a blush on her face. "It's alright, I never planned on adding anyone to my training, but it wouldn't hurt to teach you. Would you like that, Hinata?" Kushina asked carefully. It took a long time, but Hinata did nod at her. At first Hinata was scared of the woman, but after what she did her view of Kushina changed. She was a really nice lady. They made their way to the training ground and saw Naruto looking at them with surprise. "Hinata!" Naruto shouted, then dashed to Hinata so she could give her a hug. "Beep." Hinata said as she was enveloped again, but this time by her blonde friend. "What are you doing here?" Naruto asked confusedly. "She will be joining us in our training," Kushina said smiling warmly at Hinata. "Really?" Naruto asked hopefully. "Why yeah," Hinata said nervously. "This is so awesome." Naruto said happily, now they could spend more time together. Kushina looked around and saw that Naruto hadn't arrived yet and now she was starting to lose hope. "Nice and you're late." Naruto screamed irritably. Kushina looked up and there was Naruto, looking a bit sheepish. "Ahaha. Sorry, I kinda got carried away with the ramen," Naruto said nervously. "For 2 hours?" Naruto asked raising an eyebrow. "Yep. It was Iruka-sensei's treat today." "So much ramen," Naruto said dreamily. He did feel a bit sorry for Iruka, the man's wallet would be empty for a while. "Sai-nai-san." Naruto shook her head. "What?" "It was free ramen." Naruto said. "You came?" Kushina never felt so happy. He came. He actually came. She was starting to feel like his dislike of her was so great that he wouldn't want to be anywhere near her, but here he was. This had to be a sign that there was a chance for them. Yeah, sorry for coming late, Kushina-sama," Naruto said awkwardly. He had every intention of not coming at all, but a talk with Iruka made him see things from a different view. Iruka told him that change would never happen if he didn't fight for it. He also told him that he shouldn't dwell heavily on the past because it could heavily affect his future. His mother was trying her best to help him in being a shinobi, and the least he could do was accept the training, from a sensei to a student and not a mother to her son. "Well, you better not be next time, you hear me? When we train and go on missions you must refer to me as sensei, understood?" Kushina asked seriously, but the happiness was clearly visible. "Sensei," Naruto said awkwardly. He mentally rolled his eyes, calling his mother sensei felt so wrong somehow. "Good." Kushina said cheerfully. It was a start. A good start. "So what are you guys doing here?" Naruto asked Naruto and Hinata. "We're training with you, Nai-san." Naruto said happily. "Really? Even the weird girl?" Naruto asked obliviously. "Nai-san. You shouldn't say things like that." Naruto said when she noticed Hinata's head drop. "What? She is?" Naruto said. "Arg. Just shut up." Naruto shouted. "What did I do?" Naruto grumbled. "Apologize to Hinata," Naruto said upset. "But you sigh. Apologize? Fine jeez. Sorry Hinata, you don't even mean it." "Yes I do." "No, you don't, Nai-san." "Arg. Girls, what?" "Nothing." Kushina looked on at their conversation fondly. They were acting like a brother and sister alright. She was surprised with how close they seemed. She knew that she couldn't be that close with Naruto since he still didn't like her, but even so she wouldn't stop being there for him even if he didn't like it. She couldn't help the warm feeling in her heart. It was slow and could take many years, but she was sure her family could come together. The training had started 30 minutes ago, even now it seemed like it had only just begun. Kushina had made 2 bunshin to take care of Hinata and Naruto while she dealt with her son. Her clones knew specifically what to teach the 2 girls, but Kushina had to actually start from the basics with Naruto. She first did an affinity test and discovered that Naruto had a wind affinity, which was her speciality. He lacked so much knowledge, but she would not be deterred. She gave him scrolls that had different styles of taijutsu, ninjutsu, kenjutsu and dojutsu. Even if he didn't have one, it couldn't hurt to be prepared. She told him to make 4 clones to handle the scrolls while he stayed back with her. "Why? Shouldn't I be the one trying to learn this?" Naruto asked confusedly. He had figured that as long as his relationship with his mother was professional, then he could at least tolerate being in her presence. "Well, that's just it, you are learning," Kushina said while looking at the 3 clones who were by the trees and reading the scrolls. "No, I'm not, my bunshin are," Naruto said irritably. Well Naruto, that's the secret to the Kage Bunshin, and that's why it's such a difficult jutsu to perform, Kushina said. I don't get it. To make a Kage Bunshin you need a lot of chakra at your disposal, as well as careful equal distribution between you and the clone. It's so hard to perform that it was labeled a Jonin rank jutsu. The technique has many advantages, like beating up people, Naruto said pointedly. It isn't just about that, the jutsu has a memory link between the user and the clone, Kushina said. So does that mean we share memories? If anything he was even more confused the more he tried to figure out where Kushina was going with what she was saying. Technically yes. When you summon a clone it immediately has every single bit of your own memory, but when it performs tasks and duties, you will not be aware of your clone's activities until the jutsu cancels, in which all the memories of the clone's activities would be brought to you, Kushina explained as straightforward as possible. So I can only get a Bunshin's memory after it pops. I don't remember that happening when I fought Mizuki, Naruto said suspiciously. What was this woman up to? Was she trying to sabotage him? It is most likely due to the fact that your body and mind hadn't fully adjusted to the use of a jutsu as great and as complex as the Kage Bunshin, Kushina explained. So right now I'm learning that stuff. Naruto questioned while pointing to his clones, who were still occupied with the scrolls. That's right, Kushina said happily. Is that it? Naruto questioned in surprise and annoyance. Here he was, thinking that she was actually going to teach him something worthwhile, but all he was doing was reading, well his clones were, but that wasn't the point. He felt like she was just trying to treat him like some stupid child that couldn't grasp what being a shinobi was and that made him feel worthless. Naruto he was actually surprised with how serious she sounded when she said his name. You need to know the basics, no shortcuts, you need this, so you have a foundation where you can build up more understanding on jutsu and survival skills. A shinobi needs to utilize, Kushina said seriously. She was all sensei right now and she had to admit that Naruto was very impatient. Naruto sighed. Once your clones are done, we will practice basic chakra usage and then I will teach you a jutsu, Kushina said. It was only fair, she would teach him everything she knew in time, it was his birthright. Naruto sighed again and then looked at his sister. Naruto was currently in a taijutsu battle with her mother's clone, dodging punches and kicks, giving counters in return, although she was holding up her own, she knew her mother was still going easy on her. Their battle was fast, so fast that Naruto struggled to keep up with the two's movements on occasion. Naruto couldn't hold in his shock at watching his sister battle the Bunshin. She was quick, agile, and very precise in her abilities. She was going toe-to-toe with a Bunshin that was probably Jonin level, and she was actually holding up her own. Dust was even gathering beneath them due to their speeds alone, he didn't think he ever saw anyone move that fast, they were literally blurring. She was good, she was very good. Naruto quickly jumped back to avoid a jab that was aimed at her ribs. You're improving, but you're still very open on your left side, the clone said, accessing any faults that she can see. Naruto quickly went through some hand seals and then stared at her opponent seriously, Futon A fixed amount of concentrated wind charged at the Bunshin, but the clone quickly dodged the attack, the tree behind her wasn't so lucky, it was effortlessly cut in half. Naruto just couldn't take his eyes away from the battle, it was absolutely spectacular, even he could admit it to himself. Naruto seemed so powerful and he couldn't hide the burning envy he felt as he watched his sister fight. She was powerful and quick, combinations that he knew would be great to have, but alas, he didn't even compare to her. He was getting depressed the more he watched Naruto, she was so out of his league that he couldn't fight back the bitter feeling of disappointment. It was like rubbing salt into the wound, like he was being told that he could never have what she had, that he was truly the dead last. He looked down, he felt like absolute crap. He didn't even protest when a hand landed on his shoulder and gently squeezed it. He looked up and saw Kushina looking at him with guilt and sorrow. If you ever want to be a great shinobi. They both looked back at the sparring match and saw Naruto making a small ball of spiraling chakra in her left hand, using her right hand to keep the left hand steady. If you ever want to be at her level. Naruto prepared herself. Follow my teachings to the letter and I promise you. Naruto charged at the clone. I swear that I will make you the greatest Hokage that had ever lived. Rasengan. There was a loud explosion and part of the ground was replaced by a small hole where Naruto aimed, but the clone had managed to move away in time. That is a promise of a lifetime, Naruto, Kushina finished. It was a promise she was going to keep. She looked at him and noticed that he still looked depressed. She hesitated for a second and then gently held his face with both her hands and made him look into her eyes. Naruto is a prodigy and so are you, I just know it, Kushina said lovingly. Naruto had to force himself not to waver his gaze, it was difficult to maintain with the way Kushina was looking at him. He didn't even know how to reply to what she said. I know you'll be Hokage. I know you'll be the best. I will not stop teaching every single thing I know. I will not stop showing you how amazing you are. I have so much faith in you, but you have to put your faith in me as well. If you let me in, let me truly be your sensei, then I promise I will put my heart and soul into you training, Kushina said with conviction. She wanted to be there as his mother as well, but even she knew that would not earn favor from him yet, so she would make do with what she had. This time Naruto did look away and removed himself from her grasp, much to Kushina's silent chagrin. He didn't know how to feel about what Kushina said, but he knew not to miss an opportunity to be able to do the same things Naruto is capable of. He nodded his head. "Excellent," Kushina said with a small smile. She could tell that he still didn't like her much, but she accepted it for what it was, for now. Naruto had finished her training, and her mother's bunchen had popped, so she made her way to her brother first. She heard what her mother said to Naruto, and she felt really guilty for showing off, she didn't mean to. "Nai-san, I'm sorry," Naruto said softly, she almost sounded like a wounded puppy, like she was the victim. "For what?" "You were just training," Naruto said as evenly as possible, but Naruto wasn't stupid, she knew jealousy when she spotted it, but she understood. "You will be better than me, Nai-san." "I'm sure of it," Naruto said reassuringly, then made her way to Hinata. "That was some sparring match, you're improving," the clone that was teaching Hinata said. "Thanks, so what are you guys doing?" Naruto asked curiously. "Well, I'm trying to improve her Kekkei Genkai. I cannot teach her anything that would interfere with her clan's Gyuukin. So far we're just sparring so I can analyze her flaws and weaknesses," the clone said while staring at the girl who was across the field. They were still in the middle of their own fight. Hinata had watched Naruto's sparring match, it was so shocking. The girl was a powerhouse, and Hinata had never seen anything like it. She was also told by the clone to take her training seriously if she ever wanted to improve. They had been sparring for a while now and all Hinata had done was dodge the attacks and put her hands in front of her, possibly out of fear. The clone had let her get away with such tactics so far, but it seemed that her time was up. "Do not lose focus in battle. You will get yourself killed," the clone said as she rushed to the surprised Hyuga girl. Hinata couldn't stop nor dodge the punch that came to her stomach, which sent her flying into the air and hitting the ground hard. She coughed and her body shook in obvious pain. "Stand up," the clone ordered. Hinata couldn't follow as her body continued to shake, it felt like she was sparring with her father all over again, she really wanted to cry. "You are a strong Kunoichi. You can do this, Hinata. Stand up," the clone motivated. Hinata slowly moved her body, her midsection was still in pain, and she didn't think she could stand after just one punch. She really was hopeless. She quickly took a glance and was surprised to notice Naruto actually looking at her, and she blushed. She didn't know what it was, she really couldn't put it into words, but the thought of her crush looking at her sent a huge surge into her body. She screwed her face into that of determination and slowly, albeit with difficulty, stood on her feet. Her legs were shaking and she struggled to dull the pain. "We are done for the day," the clone said when she saw that Hinata could not take any more. She noticed the look Hinata sent past her, but she did not know what the girl was looking at since she didn't follow her gaze, whatever it was, maybe a recollection of memory, she wasn't sure, but it helped Hinata find inner strength, momentarily. Her legs gave out on her, and Hinata fell, but she was grabbed and held before she even touched the ground, and when she looked up, she noticed Kushina's clone smiling at her. "You have a lot to improve from Hinata. You fear too much and you're indecisive in your actions, and that is a huge disadvantage. You're afraid to attack me, and we really need to work on that, it's the only way to improve your skills among other things. Never underestimate your enemy and get distracted, you would be inviting defeat if you did so," the clone said as she started healing the depressed heiress. "But I am proud of you. When you stood up it showed me how determined you are. It showed me how much you're willing to improve no matter how much the pain. You did well today, Hinata, well done," the clone said comfortingly. Hinata looked at the clone in shock, she didn't think she did that well, hell she thought she did horribly, like her father would say, but it seemed that Kushina thought differently. She felt happy, she rarely got any praise, and it felt good not to be scolded or called weak for once. "Well, you guys are free to go," the clone said, and then popped. "Did you enjoy the training?" Naruto asked curiously. She didn't do much, just a light spar in which she was easily defeated, but she couldn't help the warm feeling in her heart as she said, "Yes, I did." They made their way to the real Kushina, although Hinata was using Naruto as some sort of shield from Naruto, but Naruto didn't mind. Kushina was still in the process of teaching Naruto the basics of chakra and its uses. "So I've got hundreds of outlet spots in my body called chakra points?" Naruto asked confusedly. "Exactly, it is these specific points that allows the usage of chakra within your body. Every individual point affects your chakra flow. It is very important to keep this in mind when you are in battle," Kushina said seriously. "Asen, Hinata and I are finished," Naruto said tentatively, she didn't want to disrupt her brother's training. "Good, you guys head home and Naruto," Kushina called. "Yes," Naruto said. "Don't wait up for me," Kushina said, and she knew Naruto would understand. "Right, good luck Oni-san," Naruto said. "Thanks," Naruto muttered, he wasn't angry at her, and he hoped he didn't sound like a jerk earlier. He was caught off guard when Naruto smiled softly at him and said her goodbyes as she left with Hinata. "You mean so much to her, you know." She envies you greatly, Kushina said, watching her daughter leave. Why would she envy me when she's got all the power, Naruto said and tried to bite down the self-disappointment. She told me that you're stronger than her, not physically of course but mentally. She told me that if she had the same upbringing as you did then she would have snapped a long time ago. She envies you and your inner strength. You're her role model, even before she met you, Kushina said honestly. She doesn't know what I've been through, Naruto said matter-of-factly. True, but she can guess and she looks up to you for being so strong, Kushina said. Naruto was surprised to hear that, it sounded too weird to believe, Naruto was stronger than him and she thought of him as a role model. Her statement also reminded him of his past and he frowned, I never asked for a harsh life. Kushina flinched at that. I know so Naruto, I can't even begin to tell how sorry I am, Kushina said regretfully. It doesn't matter how many times you apologize sensei, it doesn't change what I've been through, what I've endured. You can't take away 12 years of hell with just some stupid apology with stupid excuses. You left me to rot, Naruto spat the last part, he was getting angry now the more he thought about it. I know Naruto and I know it was unfair, but we honestly didn't leave you alone. We trusted you to be in the care of your godparents, but they ended up betraying us, Kushina said sadly. That's all you got. I've heard better. You left me in the hands of other people when you could have taken me with you to wherever the hell you went. No letters. Nothing to tell me that you were even alive and then all of a sudden you just come back and expect me to be a loving son who had dreamed of meeting his parents one day. Fat chance. Naruto said angrily. Kushina paused when she registered something specific that Naruto said and her eyes widened. Why didn't she remember it sooner? We did send you letters and presents every month for the past 12 years, Kushina said confusedly. Oh and somehow they never got to me. Cut the crap and let's get back to training, Naruto gritted out and looked away from her. Kushina was borderline confused at this point. She and Minato had sent hundreds of letters and scrolls with presents to Konoha specifically. The letters never had their names on them, but they did highlight the fact they were all from Naruto's parents, no further details on their identities, so people wouldn't come after Naruto because of their anger towards Minato. They even had monthly replies from Jiraiya on Naruto's well-being, and for them not to worry at all, they honestly thought they had made the right decision in trusting the two Sannin, but it was all a lie. So where did the presents go? Something was definitely amiss, and Kushina had to figure out what the hell was happening around here. Hey boss, we're done, one of Naruto's bunchen said. Boss? Naruto raised an eyebrow. Right, you may leave now, Kushina cut in, they needed to continue. The three clones simultaneously popped and Naruto was hit with so much information at once that he momentarily got dizzy and lost his balance, but he was caught gently. It's okay, Kushina cooed softly, she knew this would happen when the clones popped, he still wasn't used to the effects, so she continued to hold him steady until he got his wits back. Once he got his thoughts in process he quickly moved away from Kushina's hold. Yeah, Naruto said while rubbing his head in discomfort, it was quite a rush. Good, now before I teach you a jutsu I need to first teach you tree and water walking. Are you ready? Kushina asked seriously. She would leave out the subject of the gifts and letters for now. I'm ready, Naruto said seriously. He was hoping to learn a jutsu already, but after getting so much information from his clones, he actually wanted to know more of what Kushina was going to teach him. From there Kushina started to teach him tree climbing, and although it was a difficult start he was able to get the hang of it pretty quickly in a few hours. Water walking was a different story altogether however. Where tree walking required concentration to attach one's feet to a tree, which was a solidified and stationary object, water walking required someone to put constant and even distribution of chakra to their feet in order to stay afloat on water, which was an object in constant motion. So far Naruto was having difficulty in this exercise because he didn't know how to keep an even amount of chakra in his footing. It was very late at night now, but the training was not finished yet. Again, Kushina ordered when she saw him come out of the water after he fell inside for the 20th time. Huff. 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 Right. Naruto said tiredly as he made his way back to land and started the process all over again. Remember constant and even distribution, Kushina reminded. Naruto stood near the pond and focused as much as he could on his feet, they started to glow, he closed his eyes to focus. Kushina wasn't holding back and taking him to his very limits. She wasn't worried about exhausting him to the extent of missing missions, Team 7 would be off the next day anyway. Naruto took a few steps forward, but he started to sink almost immediately. Focus Naruto. Kushina commanded. Naruto concentrated harder and felt his feet lift. When he looked down he saw that his feet were actually on the surface of the water. I did it, Naruto said softly and in surprise when he noticed that he wasn't sinking. I did it, Naruto said gleefully. He felt really proud himself. Kushina had been analyzing Naruto's training since the beginning and she was surprised with many things. He had huge reserves of chakra if he could summon shadow clones, he had amazing stamina if he could last this long without succumbing to exhaustion. The more she looked at it, the more she realized that Naruto truly was a prodigy. It took Naruto days to tree and water walk, while it took Naruto only a few hours. He had so much promise, and she planned on capitalizing on that. "So the jutsu-sensei," Naruto said tiredly. He was so exhausted that he was struggling to focus. "You did well, Naruto, and you made me proud, but I don't think teaching you a new jutsu when you're so exhausted would be a good idea," Kushina said as she looked at his form. "I'm ready," Naruto said confidently and tried his best to hide his fatigue. "Well, alright, if you feel up to it. I'm going to be teaching you the Rasengan. It takes a lot of practice, and you won't get it the first." Kushina stopped talking when she saw Naruto faint from exhaustion. She was just buying herself some time so he could fall asleep. She knew a lot of jutsu and planned to teach him every one of them, but in all honesty, she didn't know how to do the Rasengan properly. It would be Minato's job to teach him that. She sighed and picked him up gently. She went to Naruto's apartment and put him to bed. She tucked him in and kissed him gently on the forehead. "Good night, Sachi, I love you," Kushina said softly and then left his apartment. Minato was in his bedroom, which was in the Namikaze estate, waiting for his wife to come home. Naruto had already told him that Kushina said not to wait for her because she was training Naruto, but he didn't want to sleep until he saw her. He knew he couldn't see Naruto yet. The boy had enough problems trying to adjust to his mother, and he would only complicate things further. He knew he was acting like a coward, but he was focusing more on the logical aspect of the situation instead of just manning up. "Were you waiting for me to come home, Minato-kun?" He was so out of it that he actually jerked in surprise and saw Kushina, who was already in her nightgown. "Yeah, haha, sorry," Minato said sheepishly. "Sigh, it's okay, I was actually hoping that you would be awake when I came home," Kushina said honestly. "How did the day go?" Minato asked. "It went quite well and Naruto made a lot of progress. I'm going to start teaching him some jutsu," Kushina said. "Already? Are sure that he's ready for such a step?" Minato asked curiously. "I'm positive. You should have seen him today, so strong and so determined. He may not like me, but you can never stop a mother from being so proud." Kami Minato, "I love him so much that it hurts, knowing that I made so many mistakes and that he had to suffer for it. It's so painful to look at him and know that I can never hold him in my arms, knowing that he will never call me Kasan." Kushina choked out as she sobbed. All those emotions coming to the surface and the mother couldn't hide them. "Kushina-chan, we were both responsible, so don't be too hard on yourself. We will get through this, we'll get our son back. We will sort out this dreadful village for what they put him through. I may be Hokage, but after what they did to Naruto, I refuse to put these people first. Only my family deserves such, especially Naruto," Minato said as he wiped away his wife's tears. "When will you teach him the Rasengan?" Kushina asked. "When the time is right," Minato said careful. "When will you go to him?" Kushina asked with a frown. "When the two of you have sorted things out first," Minato said. "But I know what you're going to say, that I shouldn't wait, but hear me out first. You're his mother, you cared for him so much, and it was my idea to trust Jiraiya and Tsunade in the first place. It was my decision to separate from him, and that wasn't fair to you or the children. You deserve this, to make a connection with him, to be there for him, and I would only disrupt the bonding by being involved," Minato said sadly. "Minato-kun, stop talking crap," Kushina said to the surprised Hokage. "We were both involved in the decision to leave him here. You're not the only one to blame for that, and you shouldn't distance yourself just because you think you'd be doing us a favor. Naruto needs both of us, not just me. He needs to know that we're there for him no matter what. Even if he despises us, we need to show him that we love him to no end," Kushina said. "Yeah, I guess so, but not yet. I still have a lot to sort out in this village," Minato said with irritation at the thought of Konoha. "Okay, I discovered something important today," Kushina said. "What?" Minato asked. "Naruto had never received anything from us, not even a letter," Kushina said. "How is that possible?" "Jiraiya told us. Jiraiya was never here when we left, remember, all of his letters on Naruto's upbringing was a lie," Kushina said. "Right, I forgot about that. No wonder Naruto's mad at us after not getting any word from us until we came back here. That's just so horrible, we were so careless," Minato said looking down. "Find him, find both of them," Kushina said seriously. "What?" Minato asked confusedly. "Find Jiraiya and Tsunade. I can't stand this anymore, those two have a lot to answer for before I kill them," Kushina said with a scowl. "Try not to kill them too quickly," Minato said. "No promises," Kushina said seriously. Her eyes shot wide open as she landed with a light splash and a dull thud. The sensation of falling for an eternity was still very fresh. She quickly got to her feet, which was a bit difficult because of the initial shock. She realized that she was soaked, and when she looked down she saw water that rose above her feet. She quickly took in her surroundings and realized that she was in a narrow passage with pipes, resembling a sewer of some sorts. Rumbling, she thought she was actually hearing things until the sound came again. It sounded like a distant earthquake, stopping just for a few seconds and then continuing. The ground shook with tremor effort as the rumbling continued. She didn't know what to make of the situation, but she was very curious to know what the hell was going on. Where was she? What was causing that noise? It seemed that she had to venture closer to the source in order to get answers. She looked around. Pipes, pipes, and more pipes on the ceiling and walls. How the hell did she end up here? Did someone just dump her, and if so then for what reason? The water she was walking through seemed to be knee-high now, and she couldn't shake off the sense of foreboding as the rumbling increased in accordance to her distance, or lack of. She was getting closer now and it seemed that her heart had picked the worst moment to start hammering in her chest. She was nervous, scared even. Something wasn't right about all of this, and she had a feeling she wouldn't want to know what the matter was. She saw, in the distance, that the narrow passage was beginning to stretch out, and as she approached she could see the faint outline of a room, and that made her curiosity turn to worry. Nonetheless she persisted without pause. When she made it into the room she was treated to a very large cage, even as she looked up she could see no ceiling. Her head whipped in the direction of the rumbling, so, it was coming from in there. It was actually really loud now and it shook the entire room, albeit only slightly. Just as suddenly the rumbling stopped and she froze in place. If she didn't know any better she could have sworn that the rumbling was actually someone, or something, breathing. Something was in there, she wasn't certain, but her instincts were telling her otherwise. Something was in there and she was sure it was aware of her presence as well. She shivered at the sound, something was definitely in there. Whatever it was seemed silent, as if assessing her in some way, her fears increasing tenfold, but what happened next threw her into complete bewilderment. Your father is a fool. She shot out of her bed. Her breath in short bursts, gasping for air, eyes wide open on the prospect that if she dared to even close them then that would mean the end of her. She took in her surroundings quickly and her tense body relaxed when she noticed that she was in her room. What was that? Naruto whispered to herself in worry and fear. That was the most vivid dream she had ever experienced, so much detail, and she was completely aware of everything around her. That had never happened to her before and she was actually scared. Calm down, it was just a dream. She scolded herself for getting so emotional, it wasn't as if that dream could harm her, it wasn't real, right? She hoped that she didn't wake Narumi from her sleep. It didn't matter how many rooms this place had, Narumi refused to be separated from her, Naruto felt warm at that. Narumi was like the naive, loving, bright, little girl that anyone would love. Naruto was pretty sure that even enemy shinobi couldn't harm Narumi, she was just too adorable for her own good. She took a glance at Narumi's bed and her eyes widened in shock. Narumi wasn't on the bed, she was gone. Ha-san. Tu-san. Naruto screamed. It didn't take long for both parents to rush into the girl's room in alarm. Naruto, what's wrong? Kushina asked in worry when she saw her distraught daughter. Narumi's gone. Naruto said frantically. Both parents were shocked, but it was Minato who first acted. Search anywhere you can. I'll use my Hiraishin to look for her, Minato said seriously. He did not want another child to suffer, he would not allow it. He disappeared from them in a yellow flash. Kushina was already making for the door, not caring that she was wearing pajamas, one of her children needed her, and whoever was involved in taking Narumi she'll meet a swift death at her hands. Once she found her daughter she would request for Aki to stay in the Namikaze estate permanently. In truth Aki wasn't even from Konoha, she only had arrived a few weeks ago, so Kushina could not fault her in Naruto's suffering. That didn't mean she didn't take precautionary measures to ensure that Aki would not harm Narumi. Hasan. Naruto rushed to catch up to her irate mother. Naruto, stay here. She was all mother now and she was falling into her protective instincts. I think I know where Narumi is, Naruto squeaked out. Her mother could be very scary at times, but she needed to voice out her opinion. She had her suspicions for a long time where Narumi would disappear to, and she hoped that she was correct. Where? Kushina decided to listen, she would take anything she got. Naruto and Kushina raced to Naruto's apartment. It was early into the morning and not many people were outside, but the pair were not focusing on that, they didn't even care if any of these people never saw the light of day again, except for a select few. Kushina prayed that Narumi was at the apartment, but she was a bit wary on what might be happening there. They entered the building and approached Naruto's door hesitantly, both for different reasons. Naruto gulped and then knocked softly. There was no reply whatsoever. Do you think he knows it's us? Naruto asked timidly. I don't think that's it, I think he must be sleeping, Kushina said thoughtfully. It would make sense. She had been training him to exhaustion for the past week, adding to the fact that they still had D-rank missions, then it was easily comprehensible that he must be sleeping. Do you think we should go inside? I don't want him to get angry at us. She was nervous, Kushina understood that, but if there was something happening in this place, then they needed to investigate. We have to Musume, we need to make sure that there isn't anything wrong. Plus, Narumi is still missing so we have to act quickly. With that said she opened the door and looked around, not a single soul was in the living room. They made their way to Naruto's bedroom and were met with a startling sight. Naruto was still sleeping, snoring loudly to the world, but he wasn't alone. Narumi was on his bed, using his chest as a pillow as she slept soundly. Kushina couldn't stop the tears as she stared at the scene in front of her. It was heartwarming that Narumi was also doing her best to be with her brother, and it was another slap to her face for all the mistakes she made that drifted Naruto apart from them. It wasn't fair to the girls, they obviously loved him, but since Naruto had a dislike for the Namikazes, then he wouldn't return their feelings. Kami, she wanted to die. Don't worry, Ka-san, he'll come around. Just don't give up. It will take time, years perhaps, but please don't give up on him, Naruko said comfortingly as she took hold of her mother's hand. I would never, Kushina said with a small bittersweet smile. She didn't have that kind of right, she had to make up for her failures. He was her child, her blood, her Sachi, she would never give up on him, never. Should we leave her here? Naruko asked suddenly. Kushina looked at Naruko for a moment. She was actually considering her daughter's silent request, but they were all stopped from their musings by a yellow flash. Oh, Wosh was here all along. How did she even get here? She's 3 years old. Minato kept his voice at a whisper. It was truly a shocking sight to see his daughter and son sleeping on the same bed. You know she has a knack for running out of the house ever since we got here anyway, Kushina said evenly. Oh Minato said dumbly. How did you get here so quickly, Kushina asked Minato suspiciously. I hid some of my kunai in the living room and I was able to use them to get here quick enough. He just knew he upset Kushina with what he said. He knew the reason, of course, it was a breach of trust, Naruto's trust, however small it was. Remove every kunai in this place, Kushina whispered with an edge. She was furious with Minato for this blatant act and disregard for Naruto's privacy. Then how can I come to his aid quickly? Minato countered. Ah-san, Tu-san, we have to go. He could wake at any moment, Naruko said while eyeing her brother's prone form nervously. You will remove them when he is out, Kushina replied, although it seemed more of an order, as she made her way to the bed and carefully took her daughter from her sleeping position. Narumi whimpered softly in protest and Kushina had to resist the urge to sigh. Even in her sleep, Narumi still wanted to be close to Naruto. Alright, but I'll leave the ones just outside his apartment, Minato said in resignation. Kushina did not protest to that, as long as it wasn't against Naruto's privacy, then it was fine with her. They all came together and then disappeared in another yellow flash. It was about an hour later when Kushina and Minato were conversing in his office. Any luck in finding them? Kushina asked impatiently. Well, Jiraiya was quite easy to find, using the spy network. Tsunade, however, is a whole different story. She's disappeared, none of the Anbu could report anything, and I doubt we will be able to locate her so easily, Minato said with a frown. Right, when will Jiraiya be here? Kushina asked, deciding to focus on an easier target. A message from my Anbu came a few days ago, detailing the estimated time of arrival with Jiraiya. Today is the day, Minato said indifferently. I see. There was nothing else she could say on the subject, things were already in motion, and they would soon be seeing that bastard of a godfather anytime now. Kushina-chan. Kushina was cut from her thoughts when Minato called to her in worry. Yes, Minato-kun. Kushina responded. I know you're furious, I am too, but we have to hear him out before anything else, okay? Minato said carefully. Let me make one thing clear, Minato-kun. It doesn't matter what excuse he gives us. He will still get the beating of his life, but I'll hear him out before I tear him apart, Kushina replied mirthlessly. That's good enough for me, Minato said. For a moment I thought you would try to put your former sensei in a good light, Kushina said, raising an eyebrow in a questioning manner. My true family comes first. It is my duty as a father and a husband to put my family first, Minato said seriously. And Hirai actually thought you'd put Hokage first, Kushina replied with a small smile. Minato scoffed, she had to be joking. Put these people before his own family. These despicable villagers. Minato did not find that thought amusing whatsoever. However, all those thoughts did remind him of one thing. That reminds me. I've got a special announcement for my beloved villagers tomorrow, Minato said with a glint in his eye. Kushina only raised an eyebrow. She was very interested in that, but decided to not pry. I just wonder how long we have to wait for your Anbu, Kushina said in annoyance. She was not a patient woman and she wanted justice now. Minato was about to reply, but he was stopped by a poof of smoke. He and Kushina both looked to the figure crouched in front of them. Hokage-sama, we have arrived as estimated from our retrieval mission of Jiraiya of the Sannin, the Anbu bowed lower in loyalty and respect. Where is he? Kushina immediately asked. In the waiting room, along with my subordinates. The agent knew not to mess with a woman scorned and he did not want to end up in the crossfire of an angry mother. Alright, send him in. Jiraiya was in a bit of a situation. One moment he was utilizing information on a possible uprising in another village when suddenly he was surrounded by Konoha Anbu. Now that in itself was nothing to be alarmed of since they were his allies, but when they told him that, as per the Hokage's request, he needed to return to Konoha, effective immediately, that's when he felt something was wrong. He had tried to pry information out of his escorts, but they denied him anything other than, all will be explained by the Hokage himself. Nothing more was said. He had wondered what on earth would Sarutobi need him for, especially using his best tracking Anbu agents to locate him. It was frustrating, he was on a mission, and he didn't need Sarutobi interfering. Oh well, he was back in Konoha now, not that he cared that much, but he did want to get this meeting over and done with as soon as possible. He would have easily went into Sarutobi's office uninvited, like he always did, but these agents weren't giving him space to do so, in fact they were very adamant in making sure he didn't move an inch. "Jiraiya-sama, the Hokage will see you now," the secretary said respectfully. She was lucky that Minato had let her keep this job. She had begged and pleaded, promising to accept any punishment, any suffering, to keep her job. It was mostly because of the guilt that she felt for Naruto. She didn't know him well enough, but she was involved in his suffering a number of times, under the illusion that he was the Kyuubi. She didn't know of any way she could make up for her crimes other than punishment from the parents themselves, so she waited until that fateful day came. "Thanks, I wouldn't mind getting together later," Jiraiya said with a flirtatious grin. Please make haste, Jiraiya-sama." The secretary knew all about Jiraiya's tendencies, and she wasn't in the least interested. "Sure. Jiraiya waved it off, maybe he'll stop for some research before he left the village again. He couldn't help the nagging feeling of impending doom coming forth, even though he knew full well that he wasn't in any possible danger here. Who would be stupid enough to attack one of the 3 legendary Sannin? He approached the Hokage's office, and alarm bells were starting to go off. What the hell was wrong with him? Did he eat some bad sushi or something? He decided to ignore his on and off instincts and made his way into the Hokage's office. "Sarutobi, what is the meaning?" He cut off his rant when he realized that it wasn't Sarutobi sitting at the usual desk, but Minato. "Ah. Sensei, I hope your trip back to Konoha was a peaceful one," Minato said in false happiness. Jiraiya was truly shocked to the core. Minato was back in Konoha. Since when? Had it been 12 years already? His brain struggled to think of any coherent thoughts. "Well, I apologize for inviting you here so suddenly. I just needed your report on Naruto's progress. Can he perform the Rasengan? Did you teach him any useful jutsu? Is he the prodigy that you always boasted about before his birth? Take your time, sensei." The statement was gentle, but the air was thick with tension, hardly breathable. Jiraiya's mind was still trying to sort itself out. The fact that Minato was here was a surprise, but the more pressing matter would be the fact that he immediately wanted his opinion on Naruto's progress as a shinobi. He had to be honest with himself, he had no idea how to answer the onslaught of questions. He remembered that fateful day. Tsunade had left suddenly, so suddenly that he couldn't find a reason to the sudden departure. It could have been because Konoha reminded her of Dan, but if that was the case, then she would have left years prior to the Kyuubi attack. So he was left with the baby, and to be honest he couldn't be there all the time for the child, he had a spy network to run. He looked after Naruto, secretly of course, for only a week before giving him to an orphanage and putting the child's responsibility into the Hokage's hands. He figured it would be good for the child in the end. Minato had grown up in an orphanage, going into the academy, and then finally came to be his student. He turned out to be one of the greatest Hokages that had ever lived. He figured if Naruto had the same upbringing, then he would turn out just like his father. He had planned to come and teach the kid when he reached 12 years of age, but due to his spy network, he had forgotten about it, and only now did he realize that he had to know information on Naruto, since he wrote it in the letters. He whirled around when he heard the door close and saw Kushina herself, looking at him with a small smile, which was anything but welcoming. "Hello Jiraiya, so how has our son been doing? With all the letters you sent us, then I'm sure you and Tsunade made him a great prodigy," Kushina said evenly, but her body shook only slightly. Jiraiya felt like a fish out of water, struggling to breathe and get his bearings. He knew he was in dangerous territory, so he decided to pry for information first before he would answer their questions. "Hey Kushina, Minato, when did you guys get back?" He had to put up a smile to try and defuse the tension, but it seemed to only fuel the sense of dread. Not long ago. We wanted to see you, but you weren't here. So I deduced that you were somewhere involved in your spy network. Luckily my Anbu found you easily," Minato said evenly. He wasn't going to give too much information yet. "So why weren't you with Naruto?" Kushina asked. Jiraiya was starting to sweat. This was definitely not a warm welcome. "I was busy with the spy network, Kushina-chan," Jiraiya said carefully. "Oh, how were you able to check on Naruto then?" Minato asked. He paused when he realized something he knew already. "Yes." Kushina prompted. Enough of this. Did you look after our son or not?" Kushina said strongly. The game was up and she wanted answers. "Well, I kind of let the village look after him. Make him into a responsible person before I came back to train him personally. Something similar to your life, Minato, Jiraiya said. And Tsunade? Minato asked calmly as he saw Kushina struggling to stop herself from lashing out. Left after you did, never seen her since. Now I know that I promised to look after the kid, but I thought it would be better this way. He would grow up strong just like you, Minato, and then I would come and teach him everything I know. Besides, this village would be more than enough to help him grow. Jiraiya said easily. It was for Naruto's own good, Minato could understand that. Go ahead, Kushina-chan. The moment Minato said those words was the moment when a powerful fist made contact with Jiraiya's face, which sent him flying out of the tower and crashing to the ground. Jiraiya was a bit dazed, that was the epitome of a sucker punch, he never saw it coming at all. He could barely make out the redeed that was coming to him. Kushina was letting all her anger out as she made her way to that despicable man. Once she was in range, she went on the man's stomach and proceeded to beat the living hell out of Jiraiya, all the while letting all her thoughts and emotions out. You bastard. You sorry excuse of a man. How could you? How could you betray us? Stab us in the back. Do you have any idea what we're going through? Naruto suffered, he almost died countless times, for 12 years, because of this village. My Sachi hates me. He hates me. She couldn't stop herself as she continued to let out all her frustration and fury on Jiraiya's face. Hot tears of regret and sorrow stung her eyes, and her vision was blurred. When she felt someone force her away from Jiraiya, she wanted to punch them until she realized it was Minato, calling to her. Calm down, love. Calm down. Minato implored as he held Kushina tightly. Kushina buried her face in Minato's shoulder and cried with heart-wrenching sobs, it was too much for her. Minato waited until she was feeling better before he let go of her and made his way to his sensei, who was battered from Kushina's attack. He grabbed a hold of Jiraiya's shirt and yanked the old man to his feet. He created a Rasengan and carelessly observed it while he addressed Jiraiya. All the letters you sent to us were lies. Do you know how Naruto suffered? Even the beating Kushina had given you couldn't compare to all those reports. Nothing short of killing you could make up for your betrayal, Minato said indifferently. Jiraiya didn't even protest. He had no idea that Naruto had it that badly, he knew that the villagers were still angered by the Kyuubi attack, but he didn't think they would have made Naruto suffer so much. He didn't fight back when Kushina beat him to a bloody pulp after hearing the reason he didn't think he deserved to retort. He was in pain but stayed strong and tried to make amends for his mistake. Minato, I didn't know. Of course you didn't, none of us did. You abandoned him to a life of hell and something like that is unforgivable. You will tell me where I can find Tsunade after you wake up, Minato said seriously. I'm sorry, Jiraiya said remorsefully. Me too, sensei, Minato said seriously, then thrust the Rasengan to Jiraiya, making him hit a building and knocking him out instantly, the pain from all the broken bones and inner damage too much to bear. Sayu Minato pointed at one of the villagers from the gathered crowd and spoke, take him to the hospital and tell the nurses to treat him until he is stable, nothing more. No special treatment or they will be punished, understood. Minato ordered and the stunned villager did as ordered, albeit with a lot of help. Don't worry, I can't and won't hurt my loyal villagers. Everyone in the vicinity shivered at what Minato said, the statement had an undertone of malice. They never feared for their lives any more than now. I have a special announcement tomorrow. Tell everyone to be at the tower at noon, Minato said, and then led his distraught wife away from the scene. Where is Kushina-sensei? Sakura asked curiously. She decided that I would be best suited for your D-rank missions today. Kakashi gave an eye smile at the group. Yona man. D-rank missions again, Naruto said a bit tiredly. The training he was subject to was really intense and demanding. Kushina showed him absolutely no mercy when it came to ninjutsu and taijutsu, always highlighting the fact that these two types of jutsu will be very important to his development in the future. His taijutsu was gradually improving, it had to with the way Kushina always beat him, she could hit really hard, her only excuse was that everything she did was because of her love for him, he didn't know how to feel about that. His ninjutsu still sucked, but he was starting with a simple wind-type jutsu. He had to admit that Kushina did make a good sensei. She was teaching him honestly and not trying to sabotage him in any way which he, to a minuscule amount, appreciated. He kept his feelings in check when it came to thinking of her as his mother, he didn't want to think about that, it was getting difficult to sort out his emotions. He knew he didn't hate his mother, he didn't know if there was anything else after that. Don't worry, Nai-san. Let's just get through this together, Naruto reassured. Stupid dope, do you think complaining all the time will make those D-rank missions disappear? Sasuke stared at Naruto incredulously, as incredulous as an emo could get. DCH, whatever team, Naruto said offhandedly. He didn't like this at all, he was so tired of the same mundane routine over and over again. He had enough. Bang. I've had enough of these D-rank mission, you hear me, Naruto screamed at the Hokage. Naruto, show some respect, Kakashi scolded. Minato was a bit surprised with his son's outburst. Team 7 had come here for their standard D-rank missions, but it seemed they had grown tired of it. Come on. These missions are pointless, we can do better than this. Naruto said irritably. Naruto Kakashi was cut off with a stern look from Minato. I see, are you sure you're ready for something different, Naruto? He knew it was a stupid question, but he had to ask. Of course I am. Naruto replied hotly. He didn't like the fact that he had to request a mission from his father, but he had no choice. Alright. They all looked at him shocked, but it didn't matter. I've got the perfect C-rank mission for all of you. He looked at his secretary, who was busy sorting papers. He didn't trust her one bit, but Kushina had agreed to let her keep her job and see what happens from there. You will go and call him in now. Hi Hokage-sama. The secretary bowed meekly and hurried to her duty. She would do anything and everything to make up to the Namikaze family for her acts. This was at least a small start. It took a while, but when the door opened again, an old man walked in, looking slightly tipsy for the time of day. This is Tazuna, your escort mission. Tazuna, these are your escorts, Minato said accordingly. How are you serious? You're giving me a bunch of brats as my escorts. Are you calling a brat old man? Naruto retorted. I mean just look at them, Tazuna said as he eyed the kids. You should not fear Tazuna. These children are very capable. They were taught by quite qualified jonin, Minato said calmly. It doesn't change the fact that they're just brats, Tazuna said after a pause. Do not underestimate them. Alright everyone, go pack supplies for the trip. You'll have 2 hours before you meet up with Tazuna by the gates, Minato said. See you around or whatever, Tazuna said boredly, then left the office. I'd like to speak with you, Naruto, Minato said when he noticed everyone leaving. Naruto stopped, but he didn't turn to him. What's up with everyone wanting to speak with the dope in private, Sasuke whispered to Naruto, but she ignored him as they left the office. Well, could you turn around, Naruto? Minato asked. Naruto turned to the Hokage and looked at him with an unreadable expression. How goes your training with your mother? Minato asked carefully. It's well, Hokage-sama. Kushina-sensei has taught me the basics, Naruto said emotionlessly, but he did make a point to emphasize their names. He didn't want his father getting too comfortable around him. The man had no right to feel content after abandoning him. Minato had to refrain himself from flinching at Naruto's cold tone. Kushina had told him that Naruto had never called her Kasan, and Minato knew how that affected her. She can put on a strong front, but Minato knew it was tearing her apart. That's good to hear. I heard that she's even teaching you some jutsu to add to your arsenal. Minato was trying his best to get a glimpse of what Naruto felt towards him, but Naruto's expression gave nothing away. Only wine-based techniques. Is there a reason I'm here, Hokage-sama? I still have to pack for the mission, Naruto said evenly. Actually yes, I want to offer you something. It is your birthright and as your father. Minato finally got a reaction as soon as he said the last part, anger. It is my duty to teach you the Rasengan. It's my very own special tech. I refuse. What? Minato was stupefied. He thought Naruto would at least be interested in the prospect of learning something from him. He was Hokage. DCH, how dare you? After everything that's happened to me, you still have the audacity to act oblivious to it all. Naruto struggled not to shout. No, son, don't call me that. You are not my father. Kushina-sensei is not my mother. How can you even call yourselves such? How can you still think of yourselves as my parents when you left me in hell? Naruto asked incredulously. It was truly weird for him, and it only made him angrier. He was still conflicted on his feelings towards Kushina, but he certainly did not like Minato at all. Minato looked down. The truth really hurt, but that's what he gets for leaving Naruto with people who betrayed him. I'm sore. No, I don't want your apology. Sometimes sorry just doesn't cut it, Naruto said coldly. Minato still didn't want to lose Naruto as a son. He loved him and it was really hard for him to deal with this whole mess, especially with the truth of what happened to Naruto for 12 years being repeatedly shoved in his face. He realized that he never actually made a conscious effort to be there for Naruto, and that hurt more than anything. The guilt he was feeling was indescribable. No matter what he did, he would always be looked at as a horrible father, not by the villagers, but anyone else. This wasn't about some sort of disgusting pride that came with being a parent. He loved Naruto, plain and simple, and this was as bad for him as it was for his son. I've wasted enough time here. Good day, Hokage-sama, Naruto said as he made to leave. I'm so sorry, Sachi. I know it isn't enough, and I know that we don't deserve your forgiveness, but please give us a chance to fix our mistakes. We failed you as parents, we know that. We are terrible parents, not a day goes by where I don't agree. We're just so regretful of what happened, Sachi, and we'll do anything to make it up to you. We love you, Minato pleaded his case. It didn't mean much, but he needed to let Naruto know that they were really sorry. Love? Well, you sure have a way of showing me how much you love me when you left me with a bunch of strangers and took Naruto with you, Naruto said critically. Minato had to admit, the way Naruto had said that made it seem 10 times worse. He could tell that Naruto thought they chose favorites that night. No, that was far from it. We didn't take Naruto because we loved her more than you. We took her because we were running out of time. We love you both equally. It was hard decision for me and your mother, Minato said. It was most difficult for Kushina of all. She refused to leave Naruto, and it took Jiraiya, Tsunade and himself to convince her that it was the only way. She did concede in the end, but she always had her doubts. That's why she was taking it so hard. She felt like she failed Naruto in the worst way possible, which was unfortunately true. Minato could tell that Kushina was an emotional wreck. The mother was always trying to figure out ways she could make up to her son, whether it was with training or quality time. Minato had to admit he had never seen Kushina like this before. He had never seen her fall into such deep desperation. She was desperate for anything with Naruto. What the hell? Hard decision. Why the hell did you have to choose anyone? Naruto screamed angrily. Oh, that's right, he didn't know about the Kyuubi attack, Minato realized. I guess I'll have to tell you. It's the least I can do for you, Minato said as he brushed his hair with his hand. Naruto looked at the Hokage wearily. Like I have the time to hear your excuses. I have to go on a mission. Naruto slammed the door shut. Well, I could have handled that better, Minato muttered. Naruto was waiting by the gate. He was packed and ready to go. The only to wait for now would be for the rest to show up. His parents just couldn't give him a break. It was not something he liked. It's as if all they could do annoy him to no end. At least his mother Kushina sensei respected his space and did not force herself on him unless it was necessary. He could admit that he could see on a number of occasions the inner turmoil that Kushina was going through, and that really scared him. Great, you're here, Tazuna muttered as he made his way to the gate. He did not like this, even if it was supposed to happen. Taking kids with him was very dangerous. TCH. Naruto folded his arms and stared ahead of him. He had way too many problems than to deal with a drunk. Not long after that the other genin joined the duo at the gate. It was a normal affair with Sasuke trying and failing, on many occasions, to sway Naruto to the Uchiha image. They were all waiting impatiently for their Jonin senseis. After some time their wait was over. Good morning everyone, Kushina greeted with a forced smile. She was still a bit distraught after dealing with Jiraiya. His very name just filled her with so much rage. She was furious at his neglecting of her child. His suffering was far from finished, however she had her children to think about. Minato had refused to involve her in this mission at first, but she would hear none of it. This would be the first mission her children would be away from Konoha. She had to put up a strong front, no need to worry everyone around her. Where's Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked confusedly. Yeah. I would have thought that we were going with him alone, Naruto said. He didn't mean to say it like that, Kushina reassured herself. He may not like her as a parent, but he was still giving her some chance to be around him. It wasn't much, but she was willing to take anything she could. Yo, Kakashi greeted from atop a tree. How long have you been there? Sasuke asked. Since Naruto came here, Kakashi said with an eye smile. Naruto frowned at that. He did not detect any trace of Kakashi. Which meant that he still needed a lot of work if he was ever going to become Hokage. Team 7 took the response in stride. They all began their journey to Wave Country. It was uneventful for the most part, but the rookies were making do with what they had. Hey, Sasuke-kun, Sakura started. Sasuke just looked at her expectantly. Would you like me more if I became stronger? Sakura asked tentatively. I'd like you more if you just leave me alone, Sasuke dismissed without a second thought. Sakura's shoulders sagged. You know, you shouldn't have to go to such lengths to impress someone you like, Naruto said indifferently. What do you know? Sakura fumed. For starters you're a kunoichi, and the one main objective is to become great at what you do. Love will follow soon enough, but to have little regard for your profession when it could lead to your death and to focus on trivial matters is not how a kunoichi betters herself, Kushina cut. She was getting a little irritated with their constant squabbles. You know Naruto-chan, I have a lot to offer. I'm quite the package, Sasuke boasted. Hami, what is wrong with you? Are they always like that? Tazuna raised an eyebrow at the other two adults. It's pretty much expected at this point, Kakashi supported. You sure know how to pick him, Tazuna said sarcastically. We do, don't we? Kakashi said. The journey continued on, and the group had to battle the demon brothers on their way to Wave Country. It was relatively easy for the two Jonin senseis to completely overpower the brothers. They interrogated them and in the end found out the real reason for Tazuna's need for them. The mission had suddenly become more dangerous. Kushina wanted to end it right there, but she was overruled by her genin, and she relented in the end. What's a mother do too? They were being a lot more careful since the discovery of the real reason behind the mission, but even that could not help against the unexpected. Once we arrive at Wave I want full details on what exactly is happening around there. No secrets, you hear me? Kushina said seriously. Yeah. Tazuna could admit it now, Kushina was a very intimidating woman when she wanted to be. Naruto was staring ahead of him when he caught the sight of something near some bushes. He quickly threw a kunai, making the entire group alert and ready for battle. After some 10 seconds a white rabbit jumped out of the bushes and hopped like an animal possessed, away from the group. It was just a rabbit. You really are a loser, Sasuke scoffed at Naruto. Naruto scowled and was about to defend her brother, but she was cut off with one command. Everyone get down. Kushina screamed, and no sooner did she say that a huge sword sliced through the air, narrowly missing the group's heads. Damn it. A man with bandages covering the lower half of his face emerged from the bushes. Kakashi and Kushina regarded the man wearily, but it was Kakashi who concluded the man's identity. Zabuza Mamachi, Kakashi said seriously. Kakashi Haddock, Konoha's copy ninja. I don't know you though, Zabuza said as he eyed the red-headed woman. Then it's best that it's kept that way, Kushina said. She at least had a few advantages to this situation. Kakashi knew Zabuza she hoped enough, and the enemy didn't know her. Zabuza shrugged and then inclined his head to his sword. Excuse me while I take my blade from that tree. I don't think so. Kushina said curtly. How else am I supposed to kill that old man, Zabuza said as he pointed at Tazuna. You won't be killing anyone on our watch, Zabuza, Kakashi said. You're mistaken, Haddock. I came here to kill the bridge builder. If I have to go through you all then that's exactly what I'm going to do, Zabuza said seriously. Kids, get out of here. Kushina commanded. No way. This is my first mission and you want us to run away? Hell no. Naruto shouted angrily. This is no time for that. I'm ordering you to leave now. Kushina said with finality. I have to admit. That kid can make a great distraction, Zabuza said nonchalantly as he pried his sword from the tree it was lodged in. Damn it, Kushina cursed under her breath for being so careless to get distracted. Well, since you won't get out of my way then I got no choice lady. Zabuza summoned 2 water clones. I have to kill you all. 2 of Zabuza's clones went for Kakashi and Kushina respectively, while the real Zabuza went after Tazuna himself. Nothing personal old man. That's just how life is, I guess, Zabuza said as he readied his finishing blow. He was stopped however, by rock hitting the back of his head. He looked to who threw the rock and saw an irate blonde boy looking at him furiously. You're not harming him on my watch. Naruto shouted. Nai-san, we have to get out of here, Naruto said nervously. Hell no. I didn't become a shinobi to just run away from battle. I can beat him by myself. Naruto said as he charged at the missing nin. Stupid dobe's gonna get himself killed. Sasuke said and he surprised his teammates by rushing after Naruto. Naruto soon followed suit and all 3 were heading for Zabuza. Sakura was too scared to do any of that. All she could do was look around and try to figure out a way to help if possible. I'm warning you kids. Stay out of my way and you live to tell the tale, Zabuza said while narrowing his eyes at the genin. Naruto went for a punch, but Zabuza just swatted his hand away and kneed the blonde in the stomach, causing him to double over in pain. Naruto tried using her speed to get a surprise attack on the missing nin, however Zabuza intercepted and threw the girl to some nearby trees, which she hit rather harshly. Sasuke tried to create a fire jutsu, but Zabuza was faster and created a water jutsu that swept the Uchiha prodigy away. Zabuza returned his gaze to the blonde knucklehead. He felt for the kid, but he had a job to do, and these kids didn't heed the warning of a criminal. He took a small container and poured a little of its contents on his sword and then put the container away again. I warned you to stay out of my way. Now you had to force my hand. Maybe killing you will make a point to your comrades, Zabuza said as he raised his sword into the air. Naruto lay on his side, clutching his stomach. Zabuza really hurt him, and now Naruto knew how powerful a shinobi Zabuza might be. He couldn't move. The pain was too much for his body, and all he could do was wheeze as Zabuza stood over him. It's unfortunate that you have to die so young, but so is the life of a shinobi. The poison will make it more enjoyable for me, so you won't suffer too long. What can I say, I'm a nice guy, Zabuza brought the sword down to finish the blonde. Nai-san. Naruto cried out when she finally regained consciousness, but she was too far to move and save her brother from the impending attack. Naruto closed his eyes and prepared for death's embrace. It seemed like his life was unfair to the very end. Abandoned by his parents. Attacked by so many villagers. Finding out that he had parents when he spent most of his life thinking that they died or left him to rot and be forgotten. Well, the last one was partly true. Now, he was about to meet his end in the worst way possible. He wasn't going to die as a hero, but as a nobody who had a shit of a life. Memories of his harsh childhood flashed in his head and he couldn't stop his heart clenching at the images. His life was truly miserable till his death. He heard a squelch, indicating that Zabuza's blade had most probably sliced something, but he didn't feel any pain. He felt some droplets of something fall on his face and slowly opened his eyes. As soon as he had a good look at what happened his eyes shot wide open. Kushina was over him, the blade on her shoulder was unbearably painful, and she flinched when she felt the harsh metal sink into her flesh. Zabuza was quite shocked to see the red-headed woman recklessly risk her life without pause. She left his clone and immediately put her body on the line for the blonde child. Kakashi used that opportunity to destroy the water clones and attack Zabuza quickly. The missing nin quickly dislodged his blade from Kushina's shoulder and focused on the copy nin. Kushina breathing was slightly haggard. She could feel the poison slowly making its way through her system and her body was starting to feel numb. The pain on her shoulder intensified and she put a hand on the wound to try and stop the blood flow. She could do little else, her limbs were refusing to follow her commands. Even so, she did her best to put up a strong front. "Hey," she softly whispered to Naruto. Naruto was looking at her in shock. It hadn't quite registered to him what exactly happened. All he did was stare, stone-faced. "Are you okay, Naruto?" Kushina asked in concern. That snapped him out of his stupor. He looked at Kushina and analyzed her shoulder carefully. There was a nasty cut and he mentally winced. It must have been really painful. Kakashi was still dealing Zabuza. After a while he finally had the upper hand with the assistance of Naruto and Sasuke. But before they could finish Zabuza they were all interrupted by a hunter nin who claimed to be after Zabuza Mamichi. They let the nin take him and immediately turned their attention back to the kneeling woman and her son. Kushina sighed in relief when she saw Zabuza taken by the hunter nin. She doubted that she could have been of any assistance. Her body was starting to feel like lead. "Hasan." Naruto called softly as she made her way to her mother. "Ilbifin." Kushina dropped next to her son with a dull thud. "Hasan." That was the last thing Kushina heard before her world turned black. They were able to make it to Tezuna's home in record time. Kakashi took Kushina all the way. When they arrived Kushina was treated and put to bed. Tsunami made sure to look after the woman in her time of need but there was little she could do for Kushina. "How is she?" Kakashi asked as he made his way into the room Kushina was using. "She isn't good. She has a high fever and her breathing is short and labored. I'm not a medical ninja, so I'm not sure how to deal with the poison. With the limited resources we have here in Wave, I doubt we could get a cure in time. I'll need to contact someone to possibly treat her, but with Wave on edge, I can't be sure if we can find anyone that will be willing to help," Tsunami said as she eyed Kushina's prone form. "Just great." Kakashi knew that things were bad, but he needed to find a way to help Kushina before it was too late. He looked at Kushina. Her face looked very much troubled, even in her state of unconsciousness. "I will go see a contact to help her tomorrow," Tsunami said after a pause. "I'll come with you for protection," Kakashi offered. "That would be lovely Kakashi-san," Tsunami said with a smile. Kakashi went out of the room and saw Naruto. "Is she okay?" Naruto asked worriedly. "Don't worry. We'll do everything we can," Kakashi told the girl. The worried frown did not leave the young Namikaze's face, but she nodded her head. "Where is everyone else?" Kakashi asked curiously. "They're outside," Naruto said. "Doing what?" Kakashi asked with a raised eyebrow. "Tree walking," Naruto shrugged and then her shoulders sagged. "I really hope she'll get better." "Don't lose that hope," Kakashi said with an eye smile and passed the girl. Naruto lingered a while longer by her mother's room and then decided to follow Kakashi. Kakashi walked to the backyard of the house and saw a glimpse of the child named Inari hiding in some bushes as Sakura and Sasuke continued their training. He ignored the kid and focused on his students. Ever since Kushina forced him to train his genin, Kakashi was glad that he took her words to heart. They may have had their differences, but his students were slowly starting to take their training seriously. But there was still one genin missing. "Where's Naruto?" Kakashi asked. Sakura briefly stopped her exercise and looked at her sensei. "He went into the forest." "Don't know exactly where," Sakura shrugged her shoulders and then continued her tree walking exercise. Kakashi sighed when he heard that. Naruto had been completely quiet after Zabuza's attack and he would briefly look at his unconscious mother before looking away in what Kakashi had to guess complete bewilderment. "Kakashi-san." Tsunami called from the door to the backyard. Kakashi looked back at the woman and saw her worried frown. This was not good. Meanwhile Naruto was going aimlessly around the woods in deep thought. Kushina saved his life. The thought was still shocking. It felt strange. It felt warm to know that someone would put their life on the line for his own. He never expected anything like this given his childhood, no one would ever protect the demon brat, so for Kushina to do it made it very difficult for him to find fault in her actions. His mind was a tirade of emotions, happiness, comfort, disgust, loathing. Why did she have to do that? Why did she have to make it so hard for him to keep loathing her presence? Why was it always so difficult for him in particular? He let out an angry sigh. He was worried about her. He couldn't fight off the feeling. The thought of her dying, because she saved him, was a very uncomfortable prospect. To top it off he was ordered to flee and he disobeyed out of anger and frustration of being pushed around by his mother and the possibility that he would never partake in a dangerous mission. He endangered all his comrades and he felt bad that Kushina had to be the casualty for his mistakes. A part of him found some sort of sick glee in seeing the all-so-powerful Namikaze put down a peg. Let her feel pain. Let her suffer in any way that she could for leaving him behind. Another part of him, however, was worried sick about his mother. Chastising him for carelessly acting out. He didn't want Kushina to die. Even after all the suffering he went through, he didn't believe death to be some sort of justice or revenge. She may have abandoned him, but he would never wish her death. His train of thought stopped when he spotted someone picking up flowers and plants. Oh, hello. The person was a girl with long black hair, wearing a casual kimono which had no sleeves. Hi, Naruto said distractedly and then looked at the girl's basket. What are you doing? Naruto asked. The girl looked at the ground and then at Naruto again. Well, I'm picking plants, the girl said. Why? Naruto needed something to distract himself and he was a bit curious. The girl bit her lip. To make medicine for a friend, the girl said after a while. Oh, Naruto said awkwardly. Well, the distraction was over and his mind strayed back to his mother. Is something wrong? The girl asked as she continued to pick various plants off the ground. No, it's okay. It's my problem, Naruto said with a frown. Sometimes it helps to talk to someone. I can keep a secret, the girl reassured. It would seem weird to trust a complete stranger with one's problems. The girl seemed nice though, so Naruto gave it a shot. Well, me sensei is sick, Naruto said after a pause. He missed the girl momentarily stiffening after he said those words. The girl looked hesitant for a moment and then asked, is it anything serious? Yeah, she was poisoned, Naruto said softly. There was a long pause after that and Naruto had half a mind to just say his goodbyes and leave, but the girl cut in. I make a lot of medicine. Maybe I can help, the girl suggested. You can? Naruto asked in surprise. I might be able to, if you can tell me the symptoms, the girl replied. Well, she was breathing a lot and her face was reeked. I don't know anything else, Naruto said frustratedly. How did she get the poison? The girl asked. She was cut on the shoulder, Naruto said. He expected more questions but was surprised when the girl pulled out a small bottle from a pouch. This should work for most poison that has entered the body through exposed flesh or open wounds. I'm quite sure this is the right one to deal with your problem. Your sensei must drink everything. It will forcibly release the poison from your sensei's system. Be warned, she will have a heavy fever with a lot of sweating. That will be indication that the serum is working. Afterwards she should be as good as new, the girl said as handed him the small bottle. Are you sure this will work? Naruto asked warily. He knew that he didn't give enough detail about the poison to know exactly what they were dealing with. Besides, this could make things worse. I'm positive it will work. By the way, my name is Haku, Haku said with a smile. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, Naruto said. It was nice to meet you, Naruto-san, Haku said as she started walking away. Wait. Naruto said, but the girl was already gone. He lingered there for a while longer and analyzed things. He had no choice. There was just little anyone could do, and this was the only option he had. He was a person for taking gambles, but he was still a bit wary of this one. He resolved to follow his gut and made a dash to Tezuna's home. He burst through the door and raced to Kushina's room. He stopped when he heard voices inside. We need to leave now. Her condition is getting worse, he heard Tsunami say. How long will it take us to get help and come back? Kakashi asked. I'm not sure, but we don't have much of a choice, Tsunami said. Naruto took that as his cue and barged into the room with a bottle. I can help. Naruto said hurriedly. Naruto? What are you doing? Kakashi sighed. I got the cure. Naruto said. What are you talking about? Kakashi asked with a frown. Naruto didn't answer and made his way to his mother. He lifted the bottle, but before he could do anything else Kakashi grabbed his wrist. What is this? Kakashi asked suspiciously as he eyed the bottle. Let me go. This will help her. Naruto protested. Where did you get it? Kakashi continued to ignore the blonde's protests. Kakashi let him go, Kushina rasped out tiredly. Everyone looked at her wide-eyed. This was the first she was awake ever since the attack and it still looked like she was struggling to remain conscious. Kakashi was too shocked to move, so Naruto wrenched his arm out of the copy-nin's grip. He went up to his mother. It will get rid of the poison, Naruto said quietly. Kushina nodded slowly. What do I have to do? Kushina-sama, you can't. It trust him. Kushina cut through in pain. It was getting harder to even speak. Naruto was surprised to hear that, but then decided to focus on the task at hand. He helped Kushina to sit up. She flinched a number of times from the pain and offered her the bottle carefully. Kushina started drinking the serum. After she was finished Naruto helped her lay down. You're gonna get a bad fever soon, but after that you should be fine, Naruto said. Kushina nodded and then closed her eyes. Naruto, Kakashi started. I got it from a person who knows poisons, Naruto said. You can't just trust anyone you meet. Kakashi admonished. What else could I do? By the time you and Tsunami got back from that person you're trying to find, then it could already be too late. Naruto said irritably. There's no point in arguing. What's done is done. I will stay by Kushina's side to see if there is any progress. You two need to leave her in peace, Tsunami said. Kakashi and Naruto left the room, but Kakashi was far from finished. I'm very disappointed in you, Naruto, Kakashi said. Up yours. I should be saying the same thing to you. I know how close you are to my parents. Disappointed. Well, get used to it, you freaking hypocrite. Naruto fumed and then left a gobsmacked Kakashi in the corridor. Kakashi was shocked to the core. How did Naruto find out? It was late into the night and Naruto was sleeping on the living room sofa. He kept on shifting around. His face held discomfort. All he could see was black. It felt like he was falling. Just as suddenly he felt his body hit water. His eyes shot open and he stood on his feet. He looked around. This was not Izuna's home. It was a sewer. He was familiar with places like this because he had to use some sewers to hide from village attacks. He looked down and saw water that was knee-high. He looked up and could see a lot of pipes on the walls and stalactites when he heard it. It was faint at first, but he could suddenly pick up little tremors that resembled breathing. He wondered what on earth could have caused that. He looked ahead and could see a path which was leading to somewhere. With little choice and curiosity at its peak, he ventured deeper into the sewer. He approached an entrance and felt the trembling on the ground increase dramatically. This was very weird. He was very much aware of his surroundings for this to be a mere dream. Once he walked into the space he saw, what he had to admit, the largest cage-like structure that he ever laid his eyes on. On the other side of the cage was complete darkness. Then he saw a mouth form from within the darkness and something akin to Aeon. A rumbling earth tremor filled the room, and Naruto was suddenly gazing into two blazing blood-slitted eyes that bored into his very being. So the voice was so deep and heavy that it shook the room. Blood-red eyes analyzed the blonde for a brief moment and then the beast continued, "My jailer decided to grace me with his presence and pay me a visit." Naruto stared into blood-red eyes in trepidation. Whatever was in there was huge, hell, its eyes looked bigger than his body. He stood his ground, however. If that thing in the cage would attack him, then he'd rather die fighting than submit to being a coward. Knuckleheaded to the end. "Oh, come on," the voice boomed, although it did not seem to have shouted the words. "I can literally smell the fear emitting from your body." Naruto glared defiantly at the huge clouded figure. "Where the hell am I? Who the hell are you?" Naruto questioned. "Oh, so he finally speaks," the thing sounded amused, and that made Naruto grit his teeth in anger. "Hey, you stupid moron. Where the hell am I? And who are you, huh?" Naruto shouted angrily. "Who am I? Take a guess." This thing was playing with him, and Naruto was anything but amused. "You know what? Screw you. I'm outta here." Naruto fumed as he looked back to the path he came from. But before he could move, the figure continued on. "Hahaha. You're such a brat. Okay, how about I give you a little riddle to figure out who I am," the figure suggested. Naruto looked into red eyes in disbelief. "What the hell? What's red, has 9 tails, and attacked Konoha 12 years ago?" the figure questioned. Naruto squinted his eyes. Well, he winded up here so he might as well participate. His sense of logic was overruled by a 12-year-old's curiosity. At first he didn't understand what the riddle meant, but it didn't take long for him to piece everything together, especially with the clue of 9 tails, and his eyes widened dramatically. "Kyuubi," he whispered in horror. The 9-tailed fox was a popular subject in the academy, and many were told of its malicious and destructive power. Something did not make sense, however. Got it in one go. "I'm genuinely surprised." Well, that was only half true. The Kyuubi wasn't that shocked that Naruto figured out its identity. I mean, the clues were pretty much straightforward. Naruto glared at the fox. He was not stupid and he felt insulted at the Kyuubi's jab. "Does this mean I'm dead?" Naruto inquired with gritted teeth. It only made sense that he was met with death. The fox was killed by his father, which meant he had joined it in the afterlife. "Oh, how I wish for that, but sadly you are not one of the departed." Kyuubi looked bored, as if it suddenly dawned on it who exactly it was talking to. "Then where am I?" Naruto asked in confusion. If he wasn't dead, then what? This is getting tedious quite quickly. I'll summarize it for you. You are in your mindscape, more vaguely your mind. I was sealed into you the day you were born by your father to stop my murderous rampage, which wasn't really my doing, mind you, and I've lived in this cage for the past 12 years. You can understand that, can't you?" Kyuubi inquired lazily with a scratch to its head. That revelation did very little to dwindle Naruto's questions, but it did clear quite a few others. This was the reason that he was the village pariah, scorned and hated. How could Minato do this to him, above everything else? He looked at the cage and saw the little paper with a seal on it. This was unfair. He could admit to hating his parents now. After everything he had been through, this had to be the worst revelation to date. Not only did they leave him to rot, but they left him with the full knowledge that he had a Biju within him. He tried to bite back the angry tears, but to no avail. His body was shaking with unbridled rage. Fuck this. Fuck the world. If this was how life was going to treat him, then he had enough of it. What was the point of trying to be Hokage when all the villagers saw him as the fox? What was the point of being a shinobi when he was stuck with the woman that he refused to see as a mother? What was the point of living when there was no reason to? He just could not take it anymore. For goodness sake. Enough of the waterworks already. Your life sucks. Get over it. Naruto fixed his glare at the towering fox. You ruined my life. Casting the blame on me won't change a thing. Like I said before, it was beyond my power what happened on that day. The fox raised an eyebrow at the hatred radiating from the child. It was obvious that the boy was not listening to reason anymore. Still angry? What are you gonna do? Fight me? I wouldn't recommend that. If I end up killing you then we would both die. Do yourself a favor and find a nice quiet corner to drown in your sorrows. Your life is pathetic enough. Don't look for sympathy from me. Kyuubi did not even flinch in its verbal assault. So that's what it's come to. Naruto's vision turned red with overflowing anger. I'm going to kill you. No matter what. I'm going to make sure that you die. Ha! Compared to your failure of a battle with that missing nin individual, then you can bet I don't expect much from you. Naruto formed the familiar hand seal with his fingers. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 200 shadow clones suddenly appeared, all with the same clouded rage. Kyuubi expected them to charge at it, but was a little surprised when they split and formed a half circle around the cage. The Naruto in the middle walked forward with his arm drawn back. Wind quickly started to gather around his hand. All the other clones proceeded to do the same. Fuetin. Senpuken. All Narutos shot their fists forward and a huge gust of power wind struck the surprised Kyuubi's face with so much force that the fox actually stumbled on its footing. Naruto quickly unsealed 2 kunai and a few shuriken. He quickly charged at the fox at a remarkably fast pace. He charged at the dazed fox and threw his weapons, striking the fox on the side of its face. Naruto grinned, but his victory tragically ended when it was made obviously clear that the Kyuubi's face had not even been scratched. The Kyuubi slowly got to its feet and looked at the tiny child in annoyance. Kyuubi had to admit the boy caught it off guard with his attack. It also realized that Naruto was inside the cage, but ultimately made no attempt to attack him. Kushina taught you a little more than I gave her credit for. Kyuubi rolled its eyes when it saw the confusion of the blonde. Come of it. Do you really think that I wouldn't be aware of everything that has been happening in your pitiful life? I would have added my own piece if it wasn't for this seal. If I can find a way out of here then I would make sure to eat you out of your misery. Ah! Naruto screamed and charged at the beast with the intent to kill. You're still remarkably weak. Kyuubi frowned and looked down at Naruto, who was trying and failing to slash its gigantic leg. Too weak for me to even face in a human form. Human form. Like you can even do that, you bastard. Naruto screeched as he continued to attack the Kyuubi's left leg. I'm created out of pure chakra. With that comes the ability to mold myself into anything I wish. I'm a fox because I find those creature intriguing and clever. The Nine Tails asserts my dominance as the most powerful of the 9 Biju. Kyuubi yawned as it watched the boy continue to attack in his rage-induced state. Bring it on, bastard. Naruto challenged as he created a distance from the fox, albeit a minuscule amount. Kyuubi looked at the boy in irritation. It was really starting to lose its patience. Be gone with you, before my temper flares. I ain't going anywhere until you're dead. He flipped the Kyuubi off. Stupid retarded fox. Kyuubi knew that Naruto was goading it to commence battle. The Kyuubi could not help but shake its head. Naruto was a bit stronger than it originally realized, but his ability still paled in comparison to its. Adding to the fact that Naruto was not in his right state of mind, then it would be understandable why he was spewing anything hateful that came to mind. Oh well, the Kyuubi thought, it did warn him. A large cloud of burning red chakra surrounded the fox. Naruto quickly jumped backwards to avoid the heat and watched in amazement as a huge ball of chakra formed right in front of him. After some time the ball started to shrink, slowly forming a humanoid silhouette. As soon as it reached the required size and shape, the burning chakra dissipated. In its place stood a very nude and very attractive red-headed girl who had blood-red eyes, plump pink lips, a developing body, and looked no older than Naruto himself. Naruto did a double take when he saw what was in front of him. A huge blush formed as he proceeded to cover his eyes. "You're a girl," Naruto sputtered out incredulously. His poor 12-year-old mind could not comprehend what just transpired. "Your limited understanding of chakra still astonishes me to date." Kyuubi scoffed, a scowl dawning over her delicate features. "I told you that I am made of pure chakra. I can turn into anything I wish. I don't have a gender, but I may choose to wield any sex I see fit." To emphasize her point, she turned herself into a very handsome male, with short red hair and an angular face, who was still nude. "Put on some clothes already." Naruto shouted out as he witnessed the transformation. He had no qualms with seeing a boy naked, he was a shinobi, but the thing that was in front of him was not a boy at all. He refused to view the Kyuubi as anything other than a fox, but that didn't mean he wasn't aware of modesty. "My goodness. You really have issues, boy," Kyuubi said as he clicked his fingers and a standard kimono covered his body. "I got issues, what the hell? I'm not the one having sex changes." Naruto shouted. This coming from a boy who developed a jutsu that gives the wielder the illusion of a female. Kyuubi inquired non-committedly. Shut up you damn fox. That's different. Naruto yelled in anger. Whatever you say, kid. You're a kid too. Naruto shot back and then frowned confusion. You look like my age. Kyuubi rolled his eyes again. One of the drawbacks of being here is the fact that I have only technically been alive for 12 years. Although I am able to retain my fox form at its maximum, every other form requires me to accommodate the age with a suitable body. Naruto just stared at the other boy. Still don't get it. Well, it's not your fault that you're stupid. Or maybe it is, Kyuubi goaded cynically. Naruto's anger flared and he glared at Kyuubi with hatred. Now, I believe you said something about killing me. Kyuubi stretched his left arm and a sword quickly formed in his hand. Let's see what you got. Naruto stared at the Kyuubi seriously. He was still furious at the fox and his shit of a life. He made up his mind. His life was practically over anyway. He was going to end it here and take that damn fox with him. He put as much chakra into his feet and shot, like a bullet, to Kyuubi. Kyuubi managed to narrowly dodge the attack and quickly turned to regard the boy. My, that was very fast, Kyuubi said evenly. Naruto quickly charged again with a kunai in hand. He aimed for the Kyuubi's face, but the Kyuubi blocked the attack with little to no effort. So that's all Kushina has taught you? One jutsu and a minimal increase in speed. Well, I guess it's understandable with the period of time that you had, but I was hoping for better, Kyuubi said scoldingly. He was surprised when he felt harsh wind hit his back and violently flew a few feet away from the blonde before hitting the ground with a harsh thud. Kyuubi quickly got to his feet and finally noticed something he had forgotten. The Kage Bunshin are still here. Kyuubi briefly assessed the damage and was surprised to see a lot of cuts on his back. Not bad. You caught me by surprise. I wonder why you weren't as strategic when you were facing the missing nin. Naruto tried to take advantage of Kyuubi's distracted state by rushing at the fox. He cocked his hand back. Fuetin. Senpuken. Kyuubi did not even raise his head as he proceeded to slap Naruto's wrist before the blonde even struck him, breaking it in the process. Arg. Naruto grunted out as he jumped back. His wrist felt immensely painful and he could do nothing but nurse it the only way he knew how. Kyuubi finally looked at Naruto. He raised an eyebrow as he watched the blonde nurse his wrist. Did I do that? He made a show of seeming confused. You poor thing. Naruto hissed in pain and anger. He looked back and was shocked to discover that his clones, his backup, had disappeared in a plump of smoke. Now, who's going to fight your battles for you? Kyuubi mocked gleefully. Ah. Naruto's charge was filled with fury and desperation. It was all or nothing. Kyuubi's right arm shot forward and grabbed Naruto's throat. Naruto tried prying himself out of the Kyuubi's grip, but it was useless. Kyuubi brought the blonde within an inch of his face and proceeded to whisper, you know what? The whole if one of us dies we both do is a theory anyway. I'll figure out another way out of this place, but first. Naruto's eyes shot open as he felt Kyuubi's sword impale his abdomen. He stiffened and looked into condescending blood-red eyes. I hope you enjoy the afterlife. Hahaha. Those were the last words Naruto heard before his vision was engulfed in complete darkness. MHMHM. He could hear muffled noises, but he could not distinguish what the sound was. MHMHM. There it was again. All Naruto could see was black. Was he really dead now? Kyuubi really did a number on him. The only good thing that he could think of was the fact that he died fighting. But what now? He was dead, right? For some reason it did not seem that way. MHMHM. What the hell was that sound? It was starting to annoy him. Couldn't he spend the rest of his afterlife in peace? He had a miserable childhood, bad parents, and he was the most hated and loathed individual in Konoha. At the very least this place would finally give him the solace and contentment that he longed for. Mom up. Naruto would have thrown his hands in the air if he could move. He decided to concentrate on the sound again. Mom up make up. He was starting to hear it more clearly. It was a voice. A very feminine voice and it seemed to be calling to him. He groggily opened his eyes. He was very shocked to see that he was still in the mindscape. Didn't he die? This didn't make any sense. And here I thought I actually killed you. Naruto looked to his side and saw Kyuubi's female form which was kneeling and looking at him in something akin to relief. He quickly scrambled away from the girl. Fear overtaking his sense of logic. The girl was Biju and she had proven very capable of killing him. The fact that he was alive at all was very alarming. Oh, relax. I'm not going to hurt you. Upon seeing the disbelieving look Kyuubi continued, and besides, you're alive right now, aren't you? Naruto continued to stare at Kyuubi in bewilderment. Kyuubi sighed and rolled her eyes. Now that you've gotten all that anger out of your system, do you feel better? Naruto was frozen in place, but after some time he actually analyzed her inquiry. Now that he thought about it he felt a lot more calmer than he did before. He looked down and noticed that his body didn't have a scratch and his wrist was just fine. This whole situation was too confusing however, so all he could was offer a numb nod. Good. Kyuubi chirped and got to her feet. What the hell? Naruto finally blurted out. What's the matter now? Kyuubi asked raising an eyebrow. Naruto was too lost to answer. Kyuubi sighed. Look, you were angry and irrational. I felt it was better letting you vent that anger instead of keeping it inside. Kyuubi shrugged her shoulders. So all this was for me to vent out my anger? Naruto questioned with wide eyes. Was it really possible that he was the container of a demented fox? Pretty much. Kyuubi scratched her face and her mouth formed a whimsical smile. Although killing you was its own reward. You're very disrespectful and rude. Naruto scowled. Are you kidding me? Kidding? Kind of. Serious. Maybe so, Kyuubi proclaimed with a thoughtful pose. Why aren't I dead? Naruto settled for knowing facts instead of succumbing to Kyuubi's mind games. Because I never killed you. Remember when I told you that if one of us died then the other would join? Well, that's true actually. The only way for me to be free from you is through extraction. Kyuubi looked at her outfit and frowned. God, this is ugly. She snapped her fingers and a new, more accentuating, kimono appeared. Oh, that's way better. Males really have bland taste. Why are you a girl again? Naruto asked more calmly. It didn't seem like Kyuubi was going to attack him, so he decided to just wing it and see what would transpire. I like being female. Kyuubi looked at her body, analyzed her outfit and then continued, I'm not sure why, but I think this suits me more than a male image. Maybe it is because I've only ever been sealed in females until I was sealed into you. You were sealed before? Naruto asked in surprise. Yep look, about the incident 12 years ago it really wasn't my fault. I never meant for any of that to happen. Kyuubi said honestly. Then why did you attack Konoha? Naruto asked. I was being controlled by a man wearing this weird mask. I didn't know what I was doing until it was too late. Why should I believe that? Naruto quarreled. Because I'm telling the truth. I give you my word. That's not good enough, Naruto quickly cut her off in stride. After everything that I've been through I just can't trust anyone. I could show you what happened, Kyuubi offered quietly. What do you mean? Naruto asked with a frown. I have the power to channel my memories as well as yours into visual aspects. I can show you what really happened that night. The real reason your parents abandoned you. I could show you the truth in a nutshell, if you're willing. Kyuubi was a bit nervous for two reasons. The first being the fact that Naruto could really end up hating her for what she was about to do and the other would be the fact that her offer could backfire indefinitely with disastrous results. How will I know if it's the truth? Naruto questioned with narrowed eyes. This time Kyuubi huffed and frowned in annoyance. You'll just have to trust me. If you're going to be living a life where you can't find it in yourself to trust anyone then you will never get anywhere. Just this once, put your trust in me, that's all I'm asking for. Don't you want to know why your parents did what they did? Why are you doing this? Naruto finally asked. Simple, you humans make mistakes all the time, but there is always two sides to a story. I'm just tired of this constant on and off thing with your family. It affects the mindscape and makes me feel uncomfortable. At least this way you could better choose whether you like them or hate them without pause. Kyuubi said. Naruto thought about. He had always wanted to know the reason why his parents chose to abandon one of their children, so his decision was made quite swiftly. I hope you're not lying to me, Naruto said seriously. I give you my word as a Biju that everything you'll see will be the truth. Kyuubi made sure he knew how serious she was. Naruto mentally prepared himself and then looked at Kyuubi again. Show, Meplis. Alright. Kyuubi waved her left hand and a large orb appeared in front of them. I hope you're ready. Here we go, Kyuubi said as she and Naruto were both engulfed in white. What if Minato and Kushina trains Naruto council bashing? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.